So let's say you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that was you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts 100, Bodie, Hodge, and the Tower of Babel. I am, of course, here with Vishanti and Kip Davis. They are... Say hello, everybody.
Heck.
Hello? Kip, can you hear me?
Heck.
Vishanti? They couldn't hear me. We're live, everybody.
Oh! Well, that's
I forgot to unmute myself on Discord, but I unmuted myself on my OBS.
How long have we been live?
Oh,
how long have we been live?
No one heard anything from you until basically I said, "Oh, hey, they can't hear me."
I couldn't
Dapper's
hear
a
that.
professional.
Yep. So we're gonna take a drink for that.
Okay.
We're actually gonna take 2 drinks for that because I also switched the wrong scene real quick. So two drinks there. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Just,
yep.
you know, it's it's fun. It's fun when you're talking
Live
about
TV.
real life and you're not entirely
No one heard anyone
stuff. That's good.
No one heard any real life stuff.
Good. Phew. All right.
All right. So we are here today primarily to talk about. And actually, I'm gonna turn Kip down. For some reason, you just got loud. I don't know. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we're here today to take a look at Bodie Hodge's book, Tower of Babel. There's no the. Then there's a the cultural history of our ancestors. Now, I do have the full text here. We are not going to be going over all of the full text. You'll see why, because we're going to look at the table of contents, and there's going to be a number of chapters that I just don't care about, right? Like, there's a first chapter, like, how do you pronounce Babel? I don't care. Pronounce it however you want. I literally couldn't care less.
I disagree. I say Babel or Babel. Either one of those is fine. Babel is also great. I will not accept Babel.
Hey.
I do not.
All right, but before we get into that, though, we do have a few super chats and membership milestone chats. Now, the first 3 are from Benfic Tunicate, each for £10 each. But I think what we should do is we should actually alternate who's going to do them. And I say we go from top to bottom on my screen, which means we go Vishanti, Kip, and then me. So,
Sounds good.
Vishanti, you might have to scroll up to the beginning of the chat to find Benfic Tunicate's first super chat. If not, I can paste it into our group chat, if that's...
I was so busy working on some copy that I didn't even have YouTube open.
Uh-oh. So, well, I'll tell you what. Here it is in our group chat.
I do now.
There. Oh, okay.
I do now.
So we do want to say thank you very much to Benfic Tunicate.
Okay. Part 1. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Somewhere Kent Hovend was snuggled in bed, whilst lies about science danced in his head.
And there was Ken Ham, and the shills of AIG trying to kill the IQs of all humanity. I watched their videos and took many long sips for the crazy cringe BS that flowed from their lips.
Father Christmas watched with me, his face all aghast, then left for his work with his sack wide and vast. But I heard him exclaim, that wise old Saint Nick, AIG are a huge lying bag full of dicks. So we will take a drink for that. Thank you very much. I'm
applauding for that one.
Yeah. So
well done.
Seriously, that was great.
I got to say, before we went live, before we went live, it was just me and Kip here before Vishanti got here. I mentioned how I have what I think of as like the absolute best audience on YouTube. You guys are amazing. You have just some of the... You're hilarious. You're very smart. You're also just generally really cool. So, yeah. Let's see a few more. I like
what Cognitive Trifurcation says. Vish is a professional undrink.
Okay, so we got a few more things to read here. Benfic Tunicate also sent a membership milestone chat. Benfic Tunicate has been a member for 20 months and is at the amniote level. And it is a Mothra, a Ghidorah, a Godzilla, an AIG's a bag of dicks emoji, a tiny little doggy emoji, a clay dapper emoji, and then way too many pelagic tunicate emojis because any pelagic tunicate emojis is way too many pelagic tunicate emojis. I should have never given you guys this power. But we'll take a drink for it
You
anyway.
protest too much.
I mean, actually, I should find out what he thinks he doth protest too much is in Klingon, because I have Macbeth in Klingon over on my bookshelf. I should go look that up, see what the original Klingon is. I was going to say the translation, but no, it's the original.
It's the lady doth protest too much.
Oh, is it either way? I'm going to look it up.
So I suspect. I would hope that's in the original Klingon. Otherwise, we might have an historical crisis
Did I say Macbeth?
on our hands.
I think I meant Hamlet. This is in Hamlet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Hamlet.
Yeah, it's Hamlet. Okay, and that is the one I have. I have Hamlet, and I have the Taming of the Shrew in Klingon, and I don't know if there are any others that have been restored to the original Klingon. Siluf, who's been a member for 22 months, is at the tetrapod level, says, Is dinosaur the name your human family gave you? No, that was there just because, I am a dinosaur. So they went with Dapper, dinosaur, and it's a whole complicated thing. But I'll drink for the Godzilla.
The last one, I think. No?
Well, I'm not the last dinosaur by far. There are tens of thousands of dinosaurs species.
I guess there's birds. Yeah.
I'm the I'm the only known non-avian dinosaur, except for a few other YouTubers out there. I guess they technically count too. Like the other Dapper Dino, who is a green Tyrannosaurus Rex with a monocle and top hat, a bowler hat, who does video game coding tutorials, or at least did. I think he's inactive now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I had one person say, "Oh, hey, I joined your channel membership at the hatchling level," and I was like, "I don't have a hatchling level. I think you joined the wrong Dapper Dinosaurs channel memberships."
Oh
dear.
I did say, like, YouTube might be able to give you a refund, or if you don't, like, how much was it? And he was like, it was like $1. I'm like, well, if you don't worry too much about it, then, Triceratops is not a Sauroptian dinosaur. Member for 10 months. Says, AIG is a sack full of bulbous stalks, and that is true, and we will take a drink for it. By the way, I am drinking cola and Kraken. I bought a few nip bottles of Kraken.
I still have my morning coffee, but I wanted to show everybody to prove that I am who I am. I'm actually drinking out of a Tim Hortons coffee mug.
There you go. The avatar of Canada,
Nice.
Tim Hortons, an obscure hockey player.
Terrible. I like their coffee mugs. They're pretty great, but Tim Hortons as a rule is just terrible.
I'm trying to think, have I actually had Tim Hortons? I mean, I've been to Canada a few times, but I don't think I ever actually went to go get Tim Hortons.
It's sad because they are. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's like the only place that you can go reliably to get donuts in this country. Sure, there's probably other donut shops, or you could go to like the grocery store.
I'm sure Dunkin' Donuts has made its way into a few spots in Ontario or something.
Yeah, probably Ontario, right? But that's far. That's really far. I almost said the F word, but the other F word other than far.
Right.
But it's very far away from me. There are what's the one that makes the craft donuts? What am I thinking? Krispy Kreme. We have a few of those, which are really nice. Yeah. They're really good, but like, I mean, that too. It's not like I've got a Krispy Kreme down the road that I can go to. Whereas there are 67, Tim Hortons in the small town of Chilliwack where I live.
Wow.
So like I would say Tim Hortons has a monopoly on donuts.
Yeah, maybe not technically, but pretty close.
Yeah. And in terms of coffee too. Like this has been part of their evil plot, and it is an evil plot. To basically corner the market on
breakfast
coffee vendors in our country. It's tragic. It's terrible because their coffee is shit. But damn it.
Oh, that's fine.
Sorry, guys.
No,
Okay.
PG-13.
No, that's fine.
You can say shit.
Right.
It's okay. Okay. We got a few more. Crafty Siren, who's been a member for 19 months, is at the tetrapod level.
Guys! Did you see Neo 604 Atheist is bringing me some Krispy Kreme?
Ooh, nice.
Nice.
All
Yummy.
right, so Crafty Siren, who's been a member for 19 months and is at the tetrapod level, says Godzilla 100 shows down. Yes, this is episode 100, and I will take a drink for that Godzilla. Starsong has been a member for 7 months and is at the tetrapod level and says Babel was not the origin of languages. I agree. Who I say it that way because Filkavaka themselves let me know on Patreon to use a uvular R when I say their name because they're one of my patrons who give enough that I say the name out loud. Like, hey, could you put the uvular R in? I'm like, absolutely, I can do that. So, has been a member for 20 months and they're at the tetrapod level and say, always a great to see Kip and Fish on the stream. It is. Mr. Cliff for £2 says, AIG is a scrotal sack of flaccid winkies. That is a rather vivid imagery right there. I'll take a drink. And we will update the donation guy. Alright, so we are here for the Tower of Babel, and also because it is the 100th, I'm just going to let you know now, is our 100th episode. We're going 3 hours. It's just a little bit of an extra celebration, you know? It's a special episode because we came to a round number if you use base 10, which I believe most of you probably do. It's also a round number if you use base 20, which I know some of you might use, although some of you might actually use a hybrid base 10, base 20. A lot of Romance languages do. French does. So, you know, either way, it's still a nice round number, whether you are using a hybrid base 20, base 10, or even a base 20 system, or a base 10. Or I guess base 5, but who cares? Bases with odd numbers are stupid. Change my mind. Don't change my mind. You're not going to. Bases should be even numbers. Even whole numbers, specifically. Even positive whole numbers, because you could do a negative base, but that's dumb. Anyway, maybe I should do a stream where I try to count to 100 in, like, negative base 2. Or base negative 2. That'll be...
Give the people what they want.
Yeah, okay, here we go. No, we're not even going to do a poll. I'm just not going to do it. That sounds like a nightmare. Alright, so this is a PDF of the book. I definitely acquired this legally, so don't worry about that. I would never, ever acquire any of this stuff illegally.
You're a better dinosaur than I am.
Yeah. Okay, it's dedicated to his family.
Objectively correct.
So, by the way, one thing to point out, his wife, Renee, that is Ken Ham's daughter. Bodie Hodge is Ken Ham's son-in-law. Now, normally I would say that seems like some rather inappropriate nepotism, that he has such a prominent role at AIG. But the thing is, the reason that I usually see nepotism as a problem is because you're putting people in positions that they don't actually have the ability to fulfill, because they're generally incompetent. But everyone at AIG is completely incompetent at almost everything, so like I feel like it doesn't make a difference, right? Like you
Also,
put an idiot in charge of the idiot mill. Okay, cool, whatever.
Unrelated, but Neil is saying that in Canada they use base donuts, and I disagree. I think you actually use base syrup, which is really difficult, but somehow you manage.
You know, somehow we manage. But on the dedication, I just wanted to point out that Bodie did not include Ken.
Yes, you did, right here.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, damn it! How did I miss that? Oh no, those are the
Yeah, but
acknowledgements. Those are the acknowledgements, guys. Isn't Ken is part of his family, which it sounds here. This is my interpretation of this. Okay, to my family, which I guess includes everyone.
Which means like the whole planet.
Specifically, he's pointed out all the really important people in his life here. Here's my thoughts on this. I think, which I guess is, I mean, I suppose Ken Ham's part of my family, so I'll have to throw in Min here, but I don't really want to name him.
Maybe.
So
I don't know.
We're good, Ken, right? We're good.
Ken Ham,
I can't believe
Ken Ham
that
published
he
this.
wouldn't dedicate this book to Jesus.
Oh, well, there's that too, yeah. But then again, Jesus is part of his family, so maybe he did.
That's true. That's true.
Vadim Merchenko says, I think Bodhi's out of AIG now, left it a few years ago. That might be true. I don't know. I don't keep up with their with every single detail of their staffing. That's possible. So acknowledgements. Okay, so we got Elizabeth Mitchell. I don't know who that is. I don't know who this is. Russell Fuller, I think I've heard of. Douglas Kelly. I definitely know who Andrew Snelling is.
Andrew Snelling, a liar.
yeah, Andrew Snelling, the lying liar who lies. Ken Ham, Steve Gold. Yeah, I don't know most of those names, but whatever.
So importantly, can I also point something else out here? I'm a biblical scholar.
Mhm.
The story of the Tower of Babel is a story from the Bible.
Yes.
I don't recognize any of those names. And I feel that might be an
Well.
important
Mhm.
omission.
Yeah, that's the real thing.
Well.
Did anyone who actually knows what they're talking about say anything? Which actually reminds me, I
Nope.
saw a comment about. So, in case people don't know, Richard Carrier was on a fundraising stream. Richard Carrier is a serial sexual harasser who used slap lawsuits to try to silence his victims and has never apologized for that, while also including in the evidence for his lawsuits against them the very obvious evidence of him being a sexual harasser. Right? So, there's been some discourse in YouTube comments about this, and Chrissy Hansen, who is, you probably don't know, but Chrissy Hansen is a friend of the channel.
Chrissy Hansen is
Been
a
around.
boss.
I think actually,
Published academic.
Published academic. I think she's been on at least once. I think I might have a live stream with her. Not positive, but anyway, she left some comments about this, and that spawned chains of comments, and one of them was like, are you an expert? And then someone replied, well, no, but here's the thing, right? Richard Carrier is presenting himself as an expert, but he can't even read the languages. Like, he can't read Greek and Hebrew. Like, we doesn't need to
He can read Greek.
He
That's
just
okay.
cites other people that can
Carrier-
read Hebrew.
But the response was
Carrier
like,
can read Greek, but I do have questions about his
Hebrew?
proficiency in Greek.
well, there you go. But the response was like, he can ask people who do speak the languages. To which the response was just, yeah, and all of the people who can say he's full of shit. So, also, we got Ray Gatubello for $2 with a super chat that I'm going to let the two people here who are far better at Hebrew than I read. That's on YouTube.
Tishavod Bereshit Hu Tik Zinim. There we go.
And what is the translation for that into a
Being
language?
translated meaning.
The being translated meaning. This is some of this is modern Hebrew, which I suck at. So what is this? This is I don't know. I would probably have to throw some of this into.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I would say that using answer or response
Yeah.
and Genesis is probably saying AIG is a bag of dicks.
Oh,
I had to, like,
all right.
guess.
We'll take a drink for it. I'll take a drink for it.
Okay.
All right. Oh, and we missed at least a couple. We missed one other £2 super chat from Nether Six Hair, who said, "Happy episode 100," or in Young Earth Creation is counting episode 2. AIG is a bag of dicks. Oh, it's far worse than 2. This is like episode .002 in Young Earth Creation is counting, because they're usually like 7 or so orders of magnitude off. So, all right. So here's the table of contents. I'm going to go through and say, like, there's some things we're not going to bother with. How do you pronounce Babel anyway? I don't care. What specific kinds of attacks are there? Whatever.
On what?
Attacks.
On the literal historicity of the story.
What a strange chapter title for this book.
Is there really a biblical authority issue? I also don't care, because that is an internal matter for a certain group of Christians, and I am not in that group of Christians, so I don't care. The biblical count. We're going to take a look at the biblical count. We're going to take a look at, isn't there a contradiction between Genesis 10 and 11? I think we will take a look at chapter 7, 8. We're going to see how far we get, but there's a number of chapters in here that we're just not going to bother with. Both for reasons of I don't care, and for reasons of technically copyright says don't do that. So we're not going to look at every single word of this book.
That's a holy cow. How many chapters are there?
Oh, there's a lot. A whole lot.
What?
Here's a classic AIG bit of art. So here's the thing. This is Bodie's magnum opus. For years now, decades, the Tower of Babel has been his favorite thing. And he thinks it's the key to unlocking world history and understanding linguistics and all this stuff. And that's been his special thing that he focuses on, is the Tower of Babel. And you know what? People get weird obsessions with parts of texts. That's okay. That's his. It's not mine. I think it's a little weird. But then again, people find it weird that I bothered to learn Klingon because I like Star Trek and because I was bet that I couldn't. So you know what? I'm going to give it to Bodie. Hey, Bodie, if this is your favorite bit of the Bible, That's okay by me, man. Not my favorite bit. I think it's not most people's favorite bits, but you do you. Except that you're going to tell us a lot of lies, and that's not okay. That's a different thing. The South Geek Beyond for €5 says, Patreon won't let me renew my membership, so here's a super chat instead. Gonna look into what's wrong after the holidays. Promise. Heart hit like y'all. Thank you very much. I do not know what the deal would be there. It's possible that your payment method expired or is no longer accepted. That would be where I would check first, is check to see if your payment method has expired or anything. Because usually when people fail to renew, it's usually that their card expired, in my experience. And I usually just let that go because I feel like I shouldn't be the one to pester you about your credit card expiry. That should be someone else's job.
Question.
Yeah.
So if Bodie is really obsessed with Babel being the key to languages and stuff, how exactly is it that we only have a handful of language isolates, and yet all the other languages we can trace, like, their development back to, like, Proto-Indo-European, Uto-Aztecan, all the other, like, different language families? How does he explain that? Do you think he's going to get into it?
Here's what I think. Here's what I think his explanation is going to be. I think he's going to say that the languages created at Babel were in fact proto-languages. I mean, they were full languages themselves, right? But they are what became the proto-languages for larger families. So I think he thinks that one of the languages at Babel is what we trace Proto-Indo-European back to. Like, that is the language that we reconstruct as Proto-Indo-European.
So then, how does he reckon with language isolates?
This is me speculating. This is not Bodie saying this. This is what I think Bodie will say. What I think Bodie's explanation will be is that just like today, there are language families that are shrinking and growing in number of speakers. In the past, that was also true. And these used to be families of languages that have shrunken down in number of speakers over the course of history to the point where there's only now a small number of speakers of one language left from the family. That's
you know what I think is funny?
That's going to be the claim.
Tough. Boy.
That you could have God creating languages like ex nihilo, and then only a few of those languages go on to, let's just say, reproduce and develop, and one might even use the word evolve, while others shrink and don't change and go extinct.
Yeah. But Ray Gatubella for $2 says, Charles Berlitz would think Bodie is full of crap. I mean, I feel like just about everyone should feel like Bodie is full of crap. Then Dan the Man Crow gifted a Dapper Dinosaur membership. We'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Rail got to Bella for $2 says Proto-Indo-European was traditionally called Japhetic, by the way. I guess that makes sense because Japheth and whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's going to be part of his idea. So I do actually want to read the actual story of the Tower of Babel from like the selection where
Can I just say, if this was a book I was writing, I would have made my own translation.
Okay, but Bodie physically can't do that.
No.
But that is not an option for Bodie.
I would have at least used the NRSVUE.
Okay. I don't think we can expect Bodie to use a Bible that is not intended for people of at least broadly his theological persuasion. I don't think we can expect him to do that.
So this is only 8 verses. Do you want me to read the NRSVUE after you read the NKJV to see how they differ?
How about this? Have that open, and while I'm reading, check to see if there are enough differences, because it could just be that there aren't that many differences that it's not worth going over. But if there are some significant differences, then I want us to point those out.
This was a very clever ruse for me to thank Gootdo 3 for getting the SBL Study Bible off of my wish list.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was me playing 4D chess there.
All right, so here we have it in NKJV. Does anyone want to take this, or should I just go for it?
I wanted to point out, and I could read it if you want, but I actually have I have a hard copy of the New King James Version. Interestingly enough, it's also my copy of the New Geneva Study Bible.
Neat.
So that's fun. But
I have a hard copy of the NKJV too, but it's in the other room.
Yeah, all my Bibles are right here. So
I also have a copy of it that actually defaults to the Septuagint rather than the Masoretic text when there's a variance between them.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So I also, and I should point out, I also do have a translation of verses 1 to 4 handy that I've done myself. But
Nice.
we can get into some of that later, because I'm sure some of this is going to come up, right?
Well, let's see.
So-
If there aren't any major problems with the translation, I think we should just move on after we read it. But if there are, I want to bring those up. So here we go. In the NKJV, this is Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech, and it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that's just basically everyone, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said one to another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, "Indeed, the people are one, and they have one language, and this is what they begin to do. Now nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down, and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore, its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Now, one thing I want to point out that Bodie is never going to point out is that this assumes that this city is a threat to God. Right? Which...
Correct.
Well, their cooperation is the threat.
That's
not the city
That's the
necessarily.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So I don't know how Bodhi deals with that theologically, the fact that the text clearly has God seeming like this is a threat. Because nothing nothing they propose to do will be withheld from them. Well, hey, if this text is presupposing an omnipotent God, that's literally impossible.
So can I? Oh shoot! I didn't open up my Bible software yet. Oh dear! But can I? There's something else I feel like I should point out here that is missing. I suspect in this translation. Let me just jump ahead to the story here. Oh, I don't want that tab. I want this tab. There we go. Okay, let's use this tab. Genesis 11. Where Yahweh speaks in verse 6, what does this actually say? Okay. So in the New King James Version, it says, "The Lord said, indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. Now nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them." Go to verse 7. Here, this is important. At least they got this right. What does it say there, guys? "Come, let us go down, and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." Why does it say that? So
Line council mentioned.
there you go. And importantly, I think this is pretty important. There is a usage of the plural verb. This form actually, I think it's actually the exact same.
Is it like a cohortative?
No. Let me look here. No.
Also, we got Crush Their Crocs where it says Bible software. Bro's opening up Temple OS. That is a deep lore cut right there into some. That's some deep internet lore. Temple OS. My goodness, Kip, do you know about Temple OS?
Holy crap! I think I just aged 15 years.
Kip, you should look into Temple OS sometime.
I don't know anything about any of that stuff.
It was basically
boomer,
some guy's attempt to make a
boomer.
divinely inspired operating system. Is basically what it was trying to be. Some guy was like, "I have divine inspiration to make my own operating system, and it's going to be the operating system of God." And it technically is functional as an operating system, but it's basically unusable, and it's full of all sorts of like Bible verses that pop up and like heavenly choir singing, and it's a lot. It is a lot.
Awesome.
It's a lot.
Awesome. So something that's important to point out here is that there is prior to this text in Genesis chapter 11, verse 7, there is one place between Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 11 where these plural these plural what they're called cohortatives.
Yeah, I was right. It was a cohortative.
You're
not
right.
a linguist.
These plural cohortatives are used by God. Now, a cohortative is a first person expression of volition. So as the text translates, let us go down and let us mix up their tongue, their language, right? The other place that this expression occurs with the cohortative when God is speaking is in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, when God says, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness we shall make him." So it's and this has been pointed out by theologians and by biblical scholars. This is not by accident. This is pretty intentional on the part of probably the author of the Genesis 1 creation story, which I tend to think is likely later than this particular story here in Genesis chapter 11, although it gets really complicated, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we go.
Nether 6 hair for €5 says the real reason AIG with a bag of dicks will take a drink. Here's socialism so much. Their god can't withstand collective action with the Godzilla, Mothra, and a Ghidorah.
So, I mean, even God knows how powerful collective action is. Just saying.
I was like, God damn it, they have a union.
Terrified.
Yeah,
terrified
really, it's
the
forming a union.
The power of the people, right?
That's right.
The
NRSV-UE does not really read much differently than either of these. It's pretty straightforward. Like, the only real phrasing difference is, this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do now will be impossible for them. So, that's really not much different there. I will say that this is yet another instance where I get to be annoying about people missing the richness of the original language if you don't bother reading it, because the wordplay in verse 9 is really clever. Like, Al-Kain Kara Shma Bavel Kisham Balal. It's Bavel and Balal that's wordplay there, because Balal is to, like, mix up or scatter around and confuse and just make a mess of things. And Babel is it's like a pun wordplay. So.
And this is a folk etymology, right?
Mm-hmm.
In part. That's not all it is, but in part, this is a folk etymology.
All right, so here Bodie is going to go through like the genealogies of Noah's sons.
Oh boy.
And he's going to say that, like, okay, so this is how the sons are related to basically the table of nations, which, like, okay, whatever.
Do you know how many individual nations are listed in the table of nations?
70.
Fish got it. There's 70. Do you know why there are 70 nations listed in the table of nations? Are you going to answer this one too, Vish?
No, I'm going to let you do it.
Okay. The reason there are 70 nations listed in the table of nations, and this gets a bit complicated, a little bit involved here, so I hope everyone's following along, is that there is a well-worn trope in Mesopotamian religion, and this seems to be moving into Canaanite religion in terms of everything we know about Canaanite religion. It's also in Hittite texts we see this as well. There is a well-worn, I guess at this point we can call it a broadly accepted ancient Near Eastern trope that the gods, the kings of the gods, the king of the gods and his consort, most texts, in most texts this is El, had 70 children.
Right. And each one gets their
70
inheritance.
gods, and everyone got their inheritance. This is reflected in the biblical text in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 to 9. The text says that when El, or specifically when Elyon, divided the nations, when he set the boundaries of all the people, He set them according to the number of the sons of the gods, or the sons of God.
Mhm.
And Jacob was Yahweh's portion, his inheritance, basically.
This is also me going, henotheism. I will
yes.
argue for henotheism.
So, one of the things that has happened in the course of the construction of Genesis in particular is a grappling with this idea. 70 nations, 70 gods. This is a strongly accepted, well-known idea. As the writers of the text are venturing towards something more henotheistic, something like a monolatrous. Thank you. I was going to say monolatric. Monolatrous.
What are words?
Words are hard.
Monotheistic. As they're moving in that direction, right? I think that this is a strategy. I think this is a textual strategy in an effort to conflate this idea, right, of God having 70 children, and each of these being a deity charged with their own territory and their own kingdom, to reconstruct that in view of I would say, well, maybe a better way to put it is to more appropriately demythologize that. And we see that same strategy is actually reflected in that text in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 to 9. The Masoretic text famously has rewritten that text to say that God divided the nations according to the number of the sons of Israel.
Which also doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, no.
Yeah. All right, so here's where we're really going to... Our first chapter where we're actually going to really dive into what Bodie's contentions are here is chapter 5. Isn't there a contradiction between Genesis 10, world having multiple languages, and 11, world having one language? Now, the reason that Bodie cares about this is because Bodie is very strongly in favor of a inerrant and univocal text, right? The whole of Genesis, the whole of the Torah was written by one guy. It's inerrant, so there are no errors. And there's no different perspectives in it. It's all just the one perspective of Moses, inspired by God. Of course, the thing is that you want to
paint yourself into that corner.
That's not supported by any historical or textual data whatsoever. Nothing supports that, other than the choice that Bodie makes to accept that. So, for that reason, though, he can't have things like contradictions in the text. So let's see what he says. Vish, would you like to start us out with the first paragraph?
Sure. A number of people have brought up what seems like an insurmountable objection, the supposed contradiction between Genesis 10 and 11. Genesis 10 clearly says that people were separated according to their languages, plural, while Genesis 11 says that there was only one language until after the incident at the Tower of Babel. How do we explain this alleged contradiction?
Yep, well, I mean, the thing is, you could just say, well, it's a contradiction. This text is a text that is stitched together from multiple works, and yeah, there you go. The Table of Nations.
I was going to go for a much simpler answer that he's probably going to go into, is that it's telling a broad overview and then it goes into a specific.
Yeah, that will be his conclusion.
We get part of Shem's lineage, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. We get part of their lineage here, and then in chapter 11 it expands out to the full 70. So I don't see that as a theological problem necessarily, even though I know that the scholarly answer is nah, that's a contradiction.
Sir Mix-a-Lot says God has back for 100 Argentinian pesos. Says, before the Tower of Babel, do you think everyone spoke Tamil or Armenian? I mean, personally, I'm in camp Armenian when it comes to which was the first language in the world, Tamil or Armenian.
Neither. It was Basque.
Ooh, Euskara supremacist over here, huh?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. So in case anyone doesn't know, especially on social media, if you're in language circles, right, language Twitter, or you're in some linguistics Facebook groups or something like that, every once in a while wackos will come over trying to argue that some language, which is usually now a relatively a language is usually not widely spoken, is in fact the actual original language, which if you know like the absolute first thing about historical linguistics, that's not how any of this works. Like that's just not even within the realm of possibility. But Tamil and Armenian are two of the most common ones that have these weird conspiracy theories that they're actually the real original language, and it's just like, no, that's completely absurd. That's as crazy as like coming up to like a physicist and saying, okay, but have you considered that maybe all of this is actually explained by the djinn blowing on the ether? And like, no, I have not considered that, actually. I'm still not going to consider that, in fact. Just go away, please.
Yes, please.
So, Kit, would you like to get this second paragraph, which will, I think, include, at least the three verses?
Sure.
Yeah.
In Genesis 11, verse 1, the account begins, "Now the whole earth had one language and one speech." But in chapter 10, it reads, "From these the coastland peoples of the Gentiles were separated into their lands." And by the way, that word Gentiles is actually the Hebrew word goyim,
which just means nations.
Yes, so we're separated.
Yes,
that's
nations or
that's a very that's a very
It's one of those things where that word often translated as Gentiles could make sense, where you're differentiating the Hebrews or the Israelites from the nations, but here this is just everyone. It really should be nations.
It's just everyone. Yeah,
Everyone,
there's
yes.
no distinction necessary
There is no distinction.
It's
to
just
be made
nations.
If you, like, even if you were to go back to like the time of the author and say like, hey, are the Israelites one of like, are they a goy?
What are the goy?
Like a
Yeah.
like a
They're
nation?
Literally,
Yeah.
Even Abraham hasn't been born yet, so the answer is no.
Yeah, at this point, no. But like, if you ask like them right now while you're writing, if you were to list out each goy,
exactly.
Israel would just be one of them.
And because words are multivalent, and they change meanings over time too, right?
Yep.
Ooh, this is a good time to talk about the semantic landscape.
Is it? Is it a good time while I'm in the middle of the sentence?
Yeah, it's never a bad time to talk about the semantic landscape.
Let's talk about the semantic landscape.
Okay.
Hashtag not a linguist merch now available in the Dapper Dinosaur store.
So actually, I'm not sure if it is, because last time I checked my store, I couldn't find it. So I'm going to have to coordinate with some people on Discord later to figure out why the heck that is. So we're going to talk about that. But hopefully it's available. I made it. I put it on Teespring. They said it's available, but now I can't find it. So I don't know. All right, so there's this concept in linguistics called the semantic landscape, right? And the idea is that every possible meaning a word could have is represented abstractly on this landscape, right? And that the likelihood that you're like going to need to use this concept, you can think of as like the height of that part of the landscape, right? And so words tend to cluster around these peaks on the landscape, right? So like we have a word in English for dog, right? In Hebrew, there's this word kelev. And there's very little difference between how those two words are used, right? Like, sure, metaphorically, English and Hebrew might have different metaphors about dogs, but we really mean the same animal when we say these words. But there are other words that don't tightly overlap, and there are some areas where they go outside of that word, where two languages have words that mostly overlap, but they don't completely. And goy is one of them, right? Because in English, nation just means either a state, like the nation of France, or it might mean a people group, like the nation of the Welsh, right? Like the Welsh nation. You don't mean
a people group like the Basque, who don't have a nation state and live
Basque,
between Spain and France.
Right. So that it could mean that, but it usually does not mean people who are not Jewish. Whereas goy usually does not mean a nation state. And it often means a group of people, or all of the people who aren't Jewish, but it can also just mean the same thing as nation in the sense of a group of people. And this is one of those areas where we have multiple words that are all in a similar area on the semantic landscape, but they don't completely overlap, which is why you have to pay attention to things like context and how it's being used to get a good translation. And that is a very important concept for both linguists and for people who are doing translation, because, you know, most translators aren't linguists per se, but you have to be aware of the fact that words don't usually have exact one-to-one translations into other languages. There is no one word in English that has the exact same range of semantic options as the word goy in Hebrew. It just doesn't exist. There's a series of words that you have to use. And similarly, the word nation in English does not have an exact translation into Hebrew. There is no one word that covers the exact same range of meanings. Sir Mix-a-Lot says God has back.
Go ahead and read that, and then I'll push back.
Okay. Sir Mix-a-Lot says God has back for 100 Argentinian pesos. Says Genesis 10:5 didn't take the Balkans into account. No, it did not.
That is true. It did not.
All right. Let's hear the pushback.
So yeah, I was going to say that there is a word, at least in modern Hebrew, that does encompass like the semantic value of the English word like nation or nation state, and that's Medinat. So like you'll hear Jews, this is inside baseball, but like there's 3 different Israels. There's the people, there's the modern nation state, and there's the actual dirt of the land.
Mm-hmm.
And those are often just called Israel, but you need to like look at the context to determine which one people are referring to. So Medina Israel is referring to the modern nation state. If you say Eretz Yisrael, it's referring to the actual clay dirt geographical piece of land. If you refer to Am Yisrael, that's the people.
But is there
any Jews? So
what was the word that you were going to go with? Is the rough equivalent or the actual equivalent? Medinat.
Medinat.
Is there a
Medina.
Is there a Medina for the Euskara?
I don't know.
Because if there is, then I would say it has the exact same semantic range. But if there isn't, then no, it doesn't.
I mean, because I sometimes will reluctantly default to Greek and try to get people to understand, like, ethnos is also a parallel that you can use to describe this word, goy. So
I actually don't think that those words are equivalent, because I don't think you could say that there's a Medina for the Euskara, because they don't have a political state that they can claim as their own.
Mm-mm.
Which means that in that case, it's still not an exact translation for the word nation, because there is a nation of the Euskara.
Yeah, they are a people, for sure. The Euskara.
I'm going to say that I was not corrected, but we're also going to finish this verse and just keep going.
Clarified. Yeah. Vulpix, half fox, half Pokemon says, dirt of the land, Vishanti, Tsamichi intensifies. Where the dirt and the people are the same.
I do like that we are over the last few episodes, we've been accurately called out for likely vampire clan affinity. All right.
Yeah.
Kip, what do you got for us?
And I'm going to take the opportunity, because I haven't talked for a long time, to point out that JS has turned in an exegetical essay on the Tower of Babel.
That's very cool.
Sorry, I said Babel. Then he also clarified that he doesn't recall using Bodie Hodge as a source.
No.
Well, then you seriously missed out on one of the main scholars on this topic.
Well,
yeah, JS got a good grade, so Mazel.
JS. Yeah. Oh, did he? Did he say?
Mm-hmm.
He did get a good grade. Way to go, man. All right. So we're reading Genesis chapter 10, verse 5. From these, the coastland peoples of the Goyim were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their families, into their nations. And before I continue, okay, let's just scroll down. Let's finish this, because he jumps ahead to verse 20, and he's actually picking up what I'm putting down here. These were the sons of Ham, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, and in their nations. These were the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nations. So, I'm just gonna finish what he says here. In fact, one variation of this alleged contradiction is based on Genesis 11:2, where everyone dwelt in the same place, in particular, a plain in the land of Shinar. And yet in chapter 10, we find people divided into their various lands. So one of the things about this this genealogy that appears in Genesis chapter 10, and I have material on this on my channel that you guys can go and check out. There is a conflation of different text traditions just right within Genesis chapter 10, right? It's kind of cool. This genealogy is constructed from 2, or maybe I probably think 2 individual sources, and this formula that Bodie has pointed out in verse 5, I think, right? Verse 20 and verse 31 here. families, languages, lands, nations. This is a formula that helps us to identify one of the sources in this multiple source genealogy, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, and it literally does use the word families.
Jester for
Mr.
$2.
Kotem.
Jester for $2 says, so was the ether in that earlier example bagged ether? I'm gonna go with no. No, you gotta let the ether flow through the universe, otherwise the djinn gets stuck. That's how I'm gonna go with it. Because they're creatures of smokeless fire. That sounds like ether to me. All right, the solution. How is so? First, one of the things I want to point out is there's no real reason to worry about this, even if it is a contradiction. It's a silly thing to worry about. Like, who cares? In fact, I believe that would be the conclusion from most Christians and Jews throughout most of history, would just to be say like, okay, so the text is confusing here, and like, whatever, and then they would just move on with their lives. But Bodie apparently can't do that. This has to be something he addresses. So how is this resolved? Actually, it's quite simple. Genesis 11, 1 through 9 is the chronological account of the events that occurred. Genesis 10 is the significance or the result of what happened. In other words, Genesis 10 does not precede the events of Genesis 11. It just summarizes and introduces those events. Genesis 10 sums up what happened. Genesis 11 tells how it happened. Vishanti, would you like to step in as the next paragraph?
Okay. The opening, now this is the genealogy of, and closing of Genesis 10, these were the families of the sons of Noah, indicates that the material in between is a genealogy, or breakdown of the families. This material fills in extra detail, which here includes the actual division of the languages by respective family groups as a result of the splitting up of the earth in Genesis 11, verse 1 through 9.
Okay, hold up. Does that mean that Bodhi is claiming that there are 70 languages that came out of Babel?
It would
Sounds
seem
like it.
that way.
Yeah.
Okay. I would be very interested if later in this book he identifies what he thinks at least the majority of those are. Because I can tell you right now, we do not have, like, as far as I know, we've not been able to trace back 70 different proto-languages. One of the problems
It's
is...
interesting. So I'll point out here too. It is kind of interesting that we know the listing of these people in Genesis chapter 10. We know who a lot of these people are, right? And we know what languages they spoke,
and a lot of them are related. Yeah. Like there's a huge swath of these people speak Afro-Asiatic languages. So that's going to include Egyptian, Berber, Hebrew, Akkadian, Ugaritic.
and then even the number of Northwest Semitic languages in that list, right? Like, this would be the claim here would be then that that Moabite or Edomite are quote unquote different languages from Hebrew,
despite the fact that they're almost completely identical at first, at least.
All essentially identical. Like, the differences are very slight.
They're basically regional dialects of the same language complex.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like saying that,
and
like,
I think that would have been a much
It's fun.
better, stronger way to reconcile these passages, is instead of saying like they're just de facto languages, you should really consider using that they're just regional dialects, but that's just me.
And like the thing is, when you say like Edomite versus Hebrew, like we really are talking about, like, it's like if you were like to meet someone from, like, I don't know, like Bristol, and you're living in like Boston, and then you go and hang out with your friend from like LA, and you're like, oh yeah, we speak 3 different languages, and the only explanation for how these languages could become so different is if God miracled them this way so that we couldn't work together. Like,
okay. That's the other thing too, right? Is in terms of dividing the languages up in such a way that no one can understand each other,
right?
Like, that's nonsense.
It's a pretty big failure right there.
And it's gotta be
an Aramaic speaker, like, boom, suddenly you're speaking Aramaic. Boom, suddenly you're speaking.
Those are fairly mutually intelligible.
Yeah,
they're gonna figure out with maybe some bumps, in
Right.
the road here and there. What they're talking about, what they're
But
working through.
It really does
Come
seem
on.
like someone's like, oh, hey, someone from the north of England and someone from the deep south, they just can't work at the same company. It's just not going to work. It's like,
And we know that's not true.
that's just not how anything works.
The middle step is someone who speaks, like, they grew up in Michigan and they're working with someone who speaks Jamaican patois. That's going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Not impossible, but real freaking hard.
Right.
Versus someone who's speaking, like, Tibetan or Kazakhstan's language, meeting someone who speaks, like, Quechua.
Yeah, that's going to be a big problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah. Sir Mix-a-Lot says God has back for 100 Argentinian pesos. Says Semites is like everyone we like. Canaanites are everyone we hate, especially Yemenis. Japhetites are the rest, I guess. The author of Genesis, probably. Well, so one thing is, the author of Genesis did not have a concept of a Semitic language family, right? They probably noticed that there were languages that were more or less similar to their own language, but like the idea of language families wasn't something that was known about at the time. And also, I missed one from Jester who for $5 said, well, it's good to know that the Jinn aren't blowing bags of AIG at least. We'll take a drink.
I will say this is my periodic reminder that Semite does not refer to a human being, it's a language group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not get in my presence and say Arabs are Semites too, so if you're anti-Semitic, no, those are language groups.
Yeah, and also the word anti-Semitic is literally just an attempt to translate Judenhass from German in a way that sounds
which
fancy.
Means Jew hate.
Yeah. Basically, someone was like,
sound academic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share an anecdote, one final anecdote on this language conversation at this point. When I lived in Norway, I had a number of we did a lot of work with people at the University of Helsinki in Finland. I have a lot of friends from Finland, scholars in Helsinki. Whenever we got together, my Norwegian friends and my Norwegian friends and my Finnish friends talk to each other. When I wasn't around, they talk to each other in Swedish. You know why?
Because Finnish is incomprehensible to anyone who's...
Yes, because Finnish is incomprehensible.
Right.
And one of the reasons... and Finnish people all know Swedish, by and large, because it's essentially a second national language for them, and I'm convinced one of the reasons for that is because Finnish is incomprehensible. And fun fact, Swedish is so close to Norwegian, so close to Danish. These are the Nordic languages that there is literally a cross cultural element to this whereby everyone can understand each other while still speaking their own languages.
It gets a little complicated. Dutch is a little harder for certain people to understand, but the Dutch can usually understand everyone else perfectly fine. So that is one thing, is that comprehensibility is not usually symmetrical between dialects, so it is a little bit more complicated, but yeah, it's basically one language.
This is one of the things that, like, it sucks that I ended up having to leave the Nordic reception early at SBL because I literally got to witness that phenomenon like firsthand. Yeah, like the closet that it was being held in. My goodness.
So, in case anyone is curious, the reason that Finnish is the odd man out is so all those languages in Scandinavia, those are all Germanic languages. They're all very closely related to each other. They all descend from Old Norse. Finnish isn't even Indo-European. It's a Finno-Ugric language, and it has no relationship. It is related to Hungarian and Estonian. So those languages are closer. But Finnish is just the odd man out there. It's not even Indo-European. It's no more closely related to English than it is to Egyptian or any of the other Nordic languages. So that's the deal with Finnish there.
Someone's coming at you in the chat.
Love
First says we are Danes, not Dutch.
Oh yeah, I did say Dutch. My bad.
Oh, see, I thought you were providing information about Dutch people. I just completely missed that.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Look, here's something. Get demonyms that actually match the names of all your countries, Europe. Just do it. Stop with the nonsense. Jeez. That's why I started calling people from the United States of America United Statesians, because American is dumb because it's ambiguous. If I can do it with my own country, y'all can do it with yours. Come on. All right.
Quick thing. Austin Sims says, I actually added some of the people who are Antarctica bound on their personal Facebook accounts. MC Toon has been posting nonstop. The comments are gold.
Nice.
What do their faces look like? Lamau.
Today
is the day of the final experiment.
They're there right now.
They're there now.
Yeah.
Are they live streaming this?
At some point they will be, if they can get the bandwidth, which is a big if.
Yeah,
that's a big question.
There's tough.
Yeah.
Dave McKeegan took a lot of extra battery power and a solar panel to power his own equipment, so they're gonna try. But there's no guarantee.
So exciting.
So one thing I do want to say, apparently, Jaren of Jarenism and Toon have already had a little conversation where Toon pointed out, hey, the sun is already setting in the southern sky, and we're just at Punta Arenas. We're not even in Antarctica, and that already is the exact opposite of the flat Earth model. And Jaren's like, yeah, it's probably over already. Just here at Punta Arenas, but let's go to Antarctica. Which, hey, you know what? Props to Jaren for actually taking a model seriously, saying it has predictions and saying if it doesn't get matched, then yeah, the model's wrong. Good for him.
I'll just say, just impressions, distant impressions. If there was one guy in that group that I was gonna pick to go, yeah, this is bullshit, I think it probably would have been Jaren.
I think Elizabeth might also be because the thing was, Elizabeth was so excited to get the chance. I think she actually does take it seriously. Yeah. So I think she's on there too. I think Witsit is just a scammer, so I have no idea what he's doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I have no idea that Witsit is going to do some magic quantum physics to make sure that this that this holds.
Yeah, I was gonna say even Vulpix is but we don't have a model. Yeah, that's what they're. That's what someone are gonna say. I think it's great that MC Toon got Jaren to admit that it's probably already over. However, I want to see him do that admission publicly, followed up after it's all said and done,
or live on stream from Antarctica,
or live on stream.
Yeah, that would be cool too. All right, so let's get Bodie. I think it is Kip's turn for this one. This paragraph saying this type of thing here.
This type of thing was common in Hebrew. For example, Genesis 1:1 to 2:3 is the chronological account of
drink. Just
drink. Then the rest of Genesis 2 is a breakdown of the events occurring on days of creation. The second chapter gives more details of something that happened during creation.
The order is different.
In a like manner, Genesis 10 gives more detail of something that happened in Genesis 11, 1 to 9. Jesus Christ, do these people read their fucking text?
Okay.
Do they actually read them?
First of all, drink for my confirmed prediction.
Yes, I will take a drink for that.
And also, props to me for knowing so much about fundy evangelical apologetics that I knew exactly how they were going to reconcile this, because I know that's how they do it with Genesis 1 and 2.
I love that this is relatively minor potential contradiction, because like Kip said, I barely even think this is much of a contradiction. It's pretty silly. But he's like, okay, see, this isn't a contradiction because look, we have this other, even more blatant contradiction earlier in the text, and we've been able to explain that away with tortured reasoning. So we can do it this time.
Works. It works in English if you read Genesis 1 to the first few verses of 2 as an overview, and then God recreating an individual representative of every animal species for Adam to name, and Adam realizing, okay, none of these match me, and then he creates woman. So those don't inherently contradict if you read it in English.
Yeah, but also
because if you read it in Hebrew,
right,
it's the consecutive vav, which means it's one continual process, and then you're screwed. But
well, also, I mean, there's a reason English translators have been just assuming that they can use the pluperfect in the opening of Genesis,
they use the pluperfect.
2:3.
Are there English which English translations are actually doing that though?
I think the NIV is doing that, isn't it?
Many, yeah, sure. NIV.
I'm pretty sure that NASB is doing it.
So here's the thing:
NAS.
Here's the thing, Kip. You say not many of them are doing it, and that's probably true. But it's the ones these people are reading because those are the Bible translations that are for them, that are designed by people with their theology. True. So for them, that's a big portion.
Can I just quickly explain why this doesn't work?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so while it's true, because this is the argument is, and this is one that's been forwarded.
NAS doesn't do it. Kudos.
See that's one that I would have been surprised if they had just
because this has actually been this was my useful copy and it was pretty good. So
I would say that that Dr. What's his name? Dr. Brown. What's his first name?
You would know more than me.
Why am I blanking on this? Dr. Michael Brown.
I was gonna say Mike Brown
has provided probably the most authoritative proposal for this reading. So based on what he has said, he has pointed out, as people point out, that there is no pluperfect in biblical Hebrew. Well, hold on, Vish. Hold on.
Okay.
That's true, guys.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that is actually true.
But you can also express
the argument.
You can also indicate it.
Listen. Can you guys just listen? Okay. So, the argument goes, because there's no dedicated form of the pluperfect in Hebrew, we can translate this as a pluperfect because there are places, you can find places in the Hebrew Bible to translate the pluperfect based on the vav consecutive imperfect construction, which is ubiquitous throughout the Hebrew Bible, but you doing so largely on the basis of context and fairly loosely. Let's be clear, fairly loosely. The reason this doesn't work here is because it happens in a string of vav consecutive imperfects, which is part of in itself. This is part of a syntactical rhetorical construction within Hebrew, and I will point out that within a string of vav consecutive imperfects, which basically forms a series, if you want to interrupt that, there's ways to do it.
Right.
Like there are ways in Hebrew that you can indicate, you can provide a pluperfect in construction in different ways. And in fact, there is one. In Genesis chapter 2, I think it's either verse 9 or verse 10. I don't have the text in front of me, but in this very story, a pluperfect expression is introduced, and the verbal form is different for this reason.
I think we should actually back up just a little bit.
Work.
So
in Genesis 2:17.
Here's what I'm going to suggest. I think we should back up and explain a few of the terms, just so people can get what we're trying to go for. Then we're going to take a quick break because my drink needs to be refreshed, and then we'll be right back. All right, so
I might go get alcohol.
There you go. So first, let's talk about what it means to be pluperfect, right? So verbs in many languages have two different things that they can express, and many languages express both. Some only express one. One is tense, which is probably what you're thinking of when you think of most verb forms. Because in English grammar, we usually refer to just about everything as a tense, which is technically inaccurate, but who cares? Tense refers to when something happened relative to the speaker, whether it be in the present, the past, or the future. So then there's something called aspect, which indicates how complete the action is at the time being referenced, right? So imperfect usually means that you're just talking about the action in general. If it's a continuous or something like that, then it might be that there's an ongoing action. So like, when I was eating breakfast, that is a past with a continual aspect there. And then there's perfect, which means that the action is completed. So after I had eaten breakfast, pluperfect is actually a term that comes in from French. French grammarians use this for their past perfect, and English has kind of adopted it because English likes to adopt a lot of stuff from French. Although it's not stealing because the French still get to use it. And the difference between stealing and not stealing is if you steal something, the other person doesn't get to still use it, which is why I would download a car. Anyway, so pluperfect means past with that perfect aspect. Now, there's no dedicated, like Kip said, pluperfect verb form in Hebrew. And Hebrew is also a little bit complicated because historically, when you go back to Semitic languages, they typically Proto-Semitic didn't have tenses. It only had aspects. And you had to use inferences or time references to indicate tense. Or you could just leave it ambiguous. But as pretty much every Semitic language evolved, certain aspects started to take on tense-like characteristics, so that the perfect aspect would start to take on aspects of a past tense, and imperfect aspects would start to take on aspects of a non-past, which means either present or future. And then there would be other constructions that you could use to disambiguate, right? So that's what all that has to do with aspect and tense and pluperfect. And then when it comes to Vav consecutive, this is less of a grammatical thing and more of like a discourse level construction, where it's not within a sentence, it's across multiple sentences, where if you want to have a list of events that all happen after each other, you introduce each new event with the letter Vav, which is just the word for and in Hebrew. It's direct cognate to wa in Arabic, which is and. You get va in Hebrew. It actually used to be pronounced wa in older versions of Hebrew. And you just keep going. And other Semitic languages do similar constructions, where if you want a list of events, you just start each one out with the word and you keep going. And unless you do something to break up this, you usually do not change your aspect or your tense across this whole section. And since generally, if you need a pluperfect mark or a pluperfect meaning in Hebrew, that requires you to actually make word choices that are different, and it requires you to indicate things like when something occurred, or that an action has been completed in the past, or something like that. If you don't do that, and you just continue to use the imperfect aspect after a vav, well, then you're just continuing the list of events without doing anything to change what kind of aspect or tense you're using. And so basically, the argument is, well, we can't absolutely definitely say that it wasn't pluperfect because Hebrew doesn't have a pluperfect form. I'm like, okay, great. That doesn't mean that we can just translate whatever we want to pluperfect whenever it would be convenient for you, because the text has ways to express this. And there's an analogy I want to make, right? So many languages have encoded in their verbs this idea of volition, right? Whether or not something happened voluntarily, or whether it was coercive, or whether it just happened because of like natural laws, right? Like the tree fell, probably not because it wanted to, and probably not because it was coerced. It just fell because it was dead and heavy, and there was a lightning strike. And so you use a certain form of volition. English does not encode that into the verbs, right? If I just say the tree fell, you can't tell if I made the tree fell, if the tree fell naturally, if the tree decided to fall because maybe it's an ent and it just was tired of walking around and wanted to have a nice lay down. You can't tell. Does that mean that English cannot encode volition? Well, obviously not. I just disambiguated volition earlier to you. I said, I made the tree fall. That could have been encoded grammatically in another language. It's not in English, but that doesn't mean that I can't express the idea in English. It's the same thing with Hebrew. There's no one dedicated verb form for the pluperfect, but you can absolutely express the idea encoded by the pluperfect. With that, though, it is a time for a quick break after I just proved once again that I am absolutely not a linguist, and I have no idea why anyone would say that I am. That's silly and nonsense. And I will be back after the break.
I'm going to go get some. I'm going to go get something and pretend it's maple syrup mead.
Ooh, I actually kind of want to try maple syrup mead. That sounds kind of interesting.
I would try that.
All right, well, here is the intermission, and we will be right back in just a few minutes, everybody. Next time on Star Trek Lexington.
Captain's Log, Stardate 6419.0. After a month-long survey of the Alpha Doradus sector, Admiral Banna Stoker has ordered us to investigate the ruins of Pegasi 5. The readings from the planet are similar to those from Bacchus 4, and Lieutenant Lanford believes that they may have been produced by the same ancient civilization. If this is true, then the extent of that civilization, which Admiral Stoker calls the Tilikal, must have been enormous, as we are more than 1,000 light-years from Bacchus 4. The Admiral has requested planet-side investigation and detailed logs. This will require multiple landing parties, and I've had Commander Shelby and Lieutenant Lanford coordinate with Lieutenant Croc to assemble a few such parties. I myself will be leading another team, comprised mostly of senior staff, which will coordinate as well as investigate. Hopefully, no more star systems blow up.
The ruins on Pegasi 5 are ancient, but not inactive. During the course of the investigation, one of the landing parties is accidentally transported farther than should even be possible. They find themselves on an asteroid colony, hundreds of thousands of light-years away, with no obvious way to escape. Further, the station is not abandoned, and instead is inhabited by opposing groups of religious fanatics. The crew will have to keep the peace between these groups, all while avoiding the dangers of an ancient colony with malfunctioning equipment in the hope that they might find a way back home. In We Came Forth to Contemplate the Stars. Only on Top Hats Off. Okay, everybody, we are back. I am back, of course, with Kip and Vishanti. Real quick, before we get right back into it, I do want to say both Kip and Vishanti are linked in the description, and Kip wants to tell us about his liquor here.
I'm back with my bottle of Nika, because every year for Christmas I get the same thing from my oldest son. Nice. He always buys me a new bottle. And it's my favorite affordable whiskey, you guys.
Excellent.
So I might finish this, and I got to tell you, it's you can probably see it. Can you see it there? It's maybe
move it a little bit closer to where you're in the middle of your face, because you're cut off. Nika whiskey from the barrel. Okay.
But damn,
there it is.
But it's like a 51.4.
Yeah. Oh, proof, yeah.
So I might be drunk.
Okay. No, that's cool.
By the end of this.
I like it. All right, so we do have a couple of things that I do want to point out from the chat. Tom Boogan says, "Is that Klingon numerals on the clock?" Yes, it is. That clock is in fact labeled with Klingon numerals 1 through 12. Also from the chat, do you remember who said this, Vishanti? The thing you sent from the chat?
No, I just got it in the.
Well, we got
DM
someone
from. I
okay.
can't see my other screen. Anyway,
Well, it says so. The language progression went Enochian, Noachian, Egyptian, Reformed Egyptian, pre-Yiddish, Yiddish, Hebrew, Latin, the Romance languages, KJV English. Anything else? Conlangs? Yeah, that is exactly how it
awesome.
went.
That's brilliant.
I will never get over pre-Yiddish. That will stick with me for the rest of my life. I will be on my deathbed and I will laugh and say, "Remember that time Raw Matt said the Bible was written in pre-Yiddish?" What an
Your
idiot.
biographers are going to be like, WTF?
His last words were about pre-Yiddish? That's weird.
Pre-Yiddish! And it kicks off scholarly debates for centuries to come.
Yeah, Flurfum and Super, Todd Ferguson, Flurfum and Super.
know-
Yeah, I mixed up proof and ABV. It's 51.4 ABV, 102 proof.
I just want to say, my wife gets upset at the fact that all I want for Christmas is alcohol.
I mean,
And
that's
I
not
don't-
good.
I don't think that's bad, guys.
You could ask for socks, too.
No, I don't want socks.
I kind of want socks.
I don't.
I need some nice socks.
I mean, socks are fine. Socks are lovely, but
I want socks, and I
for
live
Christmas-
in Arizona, the place where they're the least important in the entire continent. All right. So the other thing, right before we get back into it, I just do want to say thank you so much for all your generosity with all these super chats, membership gifts, all this, signing up to the Patreon. It really does mean a lot. December, I think most content creators can agree, December can be a rough time, and so any support that you have for me, I really appreciate, but I also understand it's a tough time for a lot of people, right? So only give me money if you can actually afford to and you value what I do. But if that is your position, there's a number of great ways to give to the channel. There's a Patreon link in the description. There's also the channel memberships with a join button right below this video. They both give you access to my Discord server where we have a lot of fun. We also support each other. There's a space for venting about how things are going, whether it be like, world, nation, state, just your life. There's a space for tabletop role-playing game discussions, or even playing if you want to do that. There's all sorts of different spaces in there that are demarcated, and you can ignore the ones that aren't for you. I think it's a great place. It also gives you early access to all my channel scripted videos. There's one that should be coming out early next week. I'm still rendering some of the frames. This one's going to be a 4K video, at least for my parts. My parts are going to be in 4K, so if you want to see some 4K brand new Dapper Dinosaur avatar, which is why I'm bothering, that's going to be coming out hopefully early next week, something like Tuesday, Wednesday is what my plan is. But also, I have a catalog of 5 or 6 months worth of videos that you can just watch in early access if you sign up for that. And also, there's better perks at higher tiers. You can go start all the way down at $1 on Patreon, all the way up to $100 on Patreon. And there's a discount on Patreon, but not on YouTube for going annual. It's 15% if you want to go annual off of the normal monthly price. Also, if you join on YouTube, you get access to the cool emojis, and once a month you get essentially a no additional charge super chat, right? You get those membership milestone chats. If you want to do both, my recommendation would be that you get the lowest. Think about how much you want to give, then give basically $1.99 to YouTube and the balance on Patreon. That's my suggestion, because I get to keep the most on Patreon, and there's very little difference between the tiers on YouTube. So that would be my suggestion. If that's not your thing, there's also Vish has a Patreon also listed. Yep, I don't know if you have a Patreon, but your channel is linked. So
He does.
Okay.
I do.
Well, if I am reminded later, I can add that specifically as a separate link. But even right now, if you just click over to his channel, which is listed in the description, it'll be linked there.
If maybe this is the time to point out, I also have a direct link on my on all my stuff. You can just check my older streams and my videos. I also have a direct link there where you can just do one-time donations directly.
Nice.
Intended for the completion basically of the book that I'm working on, but have kind of stopped writing for the last 5 or 6 weeks for reasons. But I will be. The plan is still to find the time and the resources to finish that here in the next several weeks. And I'm planning on teaching an intro to Hebrew course in the new year. I'm jumping on the intro to Hebrew bandwagon with Dr. Josh and with Dr. Dan.
Question.
So
Are you
Mhm.
teaching it out of a grammar?
I'm using all the same resources that Josh is. It's going to be the same course that you're taking.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Huh.
It's the only way I know how to teach it. So
I'm sorry. It's one of these things where I'm starting to go like, guys, we don't learn English out of
no, I
grammars
know.
by speaking, immersion, and like visual aids and stuff. And I'm like, why? This is why I'm
Yeah.
struggling
So-
to get
and-
to a like certain chapter. Is like, this is not how I learn a language.
And the reason for that is because this is how biblical Hebrew is taught and has been taught for
Centuries.
hundreds of years. Yeah. And it's frustrating, but this is the resources that we have. There's one actually, I don't know. Maybe I'll think about this, but I taught it once. Just let me put my headphones on. I taught it 1 year. I taught it. I used. I think this one's actually out of print.
Okay.
But this is a good one in that it is
Chickens on
much
the cover.
closer to it. Yes, right.
That was good.
And I can count those 1, 2. Sorry, that was in response to something Chesh said a while ago. But it's maybe I'll use that one again because I did like that resource, but
Well-
I'm just in the planning stages. So
One of the things, because like having self-taught myself like a certain amount of other languages, and also being like a casual Spanish speaker, the thing that helped me the most with biblical Hebrew is like, yeah, you learn the alphabet, you learn the vowel markings, great. You learn some of the rubrics for how the vowel markings work, that's great, was just kicking ass at it. But when you just start going super deep into like graduate level grammar analysis, that's not helping me learn like practically the language. So like at the end of every chapter there would be like one tiny little excerpt from the Tanakh somewhere, and you would see examples of the things you just learned so that you could translate it yourself. That's when I actually learned things. And I would have literally been I would have been sinking in this class if I didn't already have a passing familiarity through like the prayer book and
well,
that's study.
that's really good to know, Vish. And I'm gonna take that into consideration as I get ready
Nice.
for my course. So,
Well, Tiri, Words of a King 7 times Purified Rana, who's been a member for 10 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, Dapper, can you invite me to your Discord? The answer is no. However, if you are having trouble getting in, here's what I will say. Go to your Discord, open up settings, go to connections, connect the YouTube channel or profile that you use to get access with memberships to your Discord, and it will give you a list of servers that you now have access to. Mine will be on it. Click the join button. The reason I do not give out the join link to that server is specifically because it is in fact for people who are members or patrons. And if you stop being one of those things, it will give you a grace period and then you will be off the server. Because if I start letting people stay on the server without actually doing what it takes to qualify to be in the server, I at that point am doing favoritism, and I will not do that. So that is basically the reason there. And also because I want there to be an incentive to actually keep giving me money. Because I'll be honest, this is money that I use to do things like pay for food and rent. So if I don't make the money, then I don't get to keep being housed and fed. And I would rather be someone with a home and food than someone who has neither, or even just doesn't have one of those. So that is why I will not do that. But I will read the next paragraph, because I believe it is my turn. Which I'm now realizing that he has he hits return and does an indent for almost every single sentence. I don't know why.
holy cow!
This is a two-sentence paragraph.
It's technically possible that you can have 1 and 2 sentence paragraphs, but come on, guy.
Like these next 2 paragraphs should be 1 paragraph. I'm going to read them as such.
Yeah.
All right. So the solution presents itself when reading the passages. One is chronological, Genesis 11, 1 through 9, and the other is a breakdown of what happened as a result of the linguistic division, Genesis 10. It simply confuses some people because of the placement of chapter 10 prior to chapter 11. This arrangement serves another purpose. After Genesis 11, 1 through 9, we immediately dive into the genealogy of Shem and follow it to Abraham, where the rest of the Old Testament continues to build. If Genesis 10 were placed between Genesis 11:9 through 10, it would be an awkward switch since the Genesis 11 genealogies pick up with a different style. Oh, really? A different style, huh? Hey, Bodie, you think that might be because maybe there's more than one author for this text? I'm just going to take a drink for
No,
that.
impossible.
Taking a drink for that. I can't. Unlike the Genesis 10 genealogies, the ones in Genesis 11 include chronological data down to Abraham by placing Genesis 10 before Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Moses was clearly making a marked distinction between how these were edited together. I'm drinking for the Moses. Oh, right, I forgot.
Clearly.
Okay, so hold on. I'm taking a drink.
Clearly, this is what's happening.
I forgot. AIG's position is not actually strict Mosaic authorship for Genesis. They actually think that different patriarchs wrote the section of Genesis that's about them.
Oh, right.
Confusingly in the third person, and then Moses collected those from somewhere.
That's what
stitched them
that
together.
Or maybe they wrote it in first person and Moses redacted it to be.
Yeah, maybe that.
That whole life-size diorama at the Ark Encounter is all about that, right? I've seen pictures.
Yeah, there's the scriptorium. The library
on the Ark.
Imagine being on the Ark where you don't even actually have enough time to shovel out all of the animal shit, but you have a scriptorium to make sure that you write down what's going on.
On papyrus and vellum.
Apparently,
I
probably.
I guess
they certainly didn't have paper.
I think that's my I would have been much more historically intrigued, I think, if Ken Ham's scriptorium was complete with clay tablets.
That would be
wedges
cool. Okay, here's one thing. You know what I actually really want to get a hand on is some traditionally made paper or vellum for Arabic calligraphy, because the fact is that Arabic calligraphy, which is all very fluid and connecting, right? But it reads right to left, which means that most scribes who are right-handed have to draw the pen across the paper in a way that on most vellum and paper would cause catching, which means that paper or vellum prepared for Arabic calligraphy has to be absurdly smooth to prevent that. And I want to get my hands on one. I want to try writing on it. It sounds like a very interesting experience, and I've seen videos of calligraphers who are like mostly Western calligraphers who bought some of this, and they were like, yeah, this is a very different feel. This is extremely smooth, and it's almost like writing on water or something. I want to try that. It sounds awesome, because I dabble in calligraphy every once in a while. I think people know that my wedding gift for my sister was doing the calligraphy for her wedding and saving her the hundreds and hundreds of dollars that she was about to spend on a calligrapher. Because I was at my mom's house and she's like, "Oh, this calligraphy is so expensive." And I'm like, "Hey, Katie,
sorry, can I read Tesla Rager's comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're out of parchment. Looks at likely animals.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah. Well, that's why you bring 7 of the clean animals, right? Because so that way you can have extras for things like parchment and sacrificing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to be fair, is actually probably the reason in the narrative, and also the reason that Answers in Genesis gives. I think they're probably right about that being part of the reason in the narrative, is so that when when Noah sacrifices animals later, people aren't like, "Hey, wait a minute! Doesn't that just mean that entire group of animals should be gone?"
Also, I want to note that AIG should be leaning harder into the hydroponics thing to explain how they kept all of these not carnivorous animals fed for an entire year.
But they can't, though, because the Bible only describes one window. So where are they going to put the hydroponics bay? Because they don't have light bulbs. See, I will say, I've said it many times, there is essentially an infinite number of reasons why the Ark story absolutely cannot be literally historical, without just infinite miracles to fix all the infinite problems with it. I believe this next... Oh! Why were the people disobedient? Well, first, I guess we could say that, like, go forth and fill the earth and multiply. That was, I guess, the rule. But here's the thing. I don't actually care why, in the narrative, the people at Babel or in Shinar weren't spreading out over the whole world. I just don't care. Do you two care? Because otherwise we're going to skip this chapter.
No.
Okay. Kip, do you care?
Do not care.
What are we skipping?
Why the people in the plains of Shinar decided to build one city rather than spreading out and filling the whole earth like God commanded.
Can I say something about it? You can feel free to skip the chapter, but I feel like I should say something about it because this is this trope about the unification of the people about the refusable. I said refusable.
You did.
I'm drinking. Their refusal to
Just
disperse.
You just started. Jeez.
It's
Off
strong,
in the
guys.
sauce already.
This shit is strong.
Okay.
So the refusal to disperse, the feature of a single city in the story. These are really, really important elements of the larger construction of what this text is, or at least what this layer of the text originally was. I tend to think this was, if you're going to hold to something like the documentary hypothesis, this is the J layer or the Yahwist layer, which properly starts in the second creation story in Genesis chapter 2 and runs essentially uninterrupted to the end of Genesis chapter 11 with some caveats there. But one of the important narrative motifs here is a polemic against urbanization. A polemic against urbanization that is a feature of this text, and it culminates here in this story in Genesis chapter 11 about the Tower of Babel, because of everything that's happening. The people have galvanized, have brought themselves together. They're building this great city. They're very importantly focusing all their energy and resources on monumental architecture in the service of the gods. And I think that this is a very old idea. I think that this is part of a broader polemic that accompanies the people who became the Israelites very early on at the end of the Bronze Age, into the beginning of the Iron Age. This is a big part of what Israelite Confederation was all about. It was about getting out of the cities. It was about going into the wilderness, into the highlands, getting back to the land, living in these small villages. They were thumbing their nose.
Israelites are
Canaanite
primitivists. There we go.
Yes. So this is a critical point of this story. So just to answer this question, why were the people disobedient? Because it fits the trope. This is part of this larger trope in Genesis chapter 2 through 11 that Bodie does not even see.
No.
He can't see it.
Yeah.
So
we got Chris McDaniel says the Creation Museum we have here in Dallas also has a scriptorium in the Ark. That's interesting.
Wow. Do they have clay tablets and cuneiform
yeah,
wedges?
that would be interesting.
That's the yep.
So I did also introduce a super chat goal. If we can get 15 of the teal or higher super chats, that's normally, if you're doing US, it's $5. I don't know what it is in every currency, but in a lot of them it's $5 of whatever you're using.
In Canadian, it's $87.
I don't think that's true. But anyway, if we do that, I will play for you the first bit of audio, because earlier we got the super chats for me to speak the call line for the elites from Halo in my next video, and then I recorded it, and so now I have a recording of me speaking it. And if you want to hear that recording, which is me having several tries and making sure that I got it right and all that, which I still think I screwed up a little bit, but still, it's my attempt. If we can get that super chat goal done in the next hour, I will play it for y'all. So, just a little incentive there. So, all right, we're going to skip this because, Bodie's not going to get it, and I don't really care what he has to say about it. Do you care about when the scattering occurred on the Young Earth timeline? Because I don't. Well, actually, okay, here's one thing.
Renowned chronologist Archbishop James Usher.
Okay, technically, I will say those are very technically true. He is renowned in that, he is pretty famous, and he was a chronologist. He just got it wrong, and he was an archbishop. So, I mean, technically, Bodie's not wrong here. Rigios for $5 says, was hoping to skip to the chapter, but have Dr. Kip say something. Well, hey, wish fulfilled, right?
Something.
That's what I'm here for.
Nailed it.
People.
So here's actually why I do.
People what they want.
Here's why I kind of do care, and this is connected to what we pointed out earlier, where if the table of nations are supposed to be the languages that God scattered everything into, that causes a bit of a problem, right? Because we know things like when languages diverge from each other and how long ago languages existed and things like that. And so I am a little curious as to how tightly he wants to compact basically the entire history of like Indo-European and Semitic languages after the flood.
As we all know, that's just secular atheist scholarship, and it can't be trusted.
Well, yes, but also I am literally here to try to represent, with the help of you two, like the consensus of scholarship in related fields. So I kind of do want, but we'll go through it quickly. I'll say that. So I'll just start real quick. I'll read basically this whole section. Renowned chronologist Archbishop James Ussher placed the time of Babel at 106 years after the flood, near the time Peleg was born. Although this may not be the exact date, it is in a range because Peleg was in the 4th generation after the flood. As we read, whatever. Before examining this date in more detail, a common misconception must be dispelled about Genesis 10:25. An extended analysis of this will appear in a later chapter. Oh, good. But due to the context, it needs to be discussed in short form here. Continental split. Oh my god.
Oh my god, he's shitting on Kent Hovind right now.
What the hell?
He's talking.
Genesis 10:25 refers to a geophysical splitting of the continents.
Yeah, because it says Peleg and Eber in his days the earth was divided, and Kent Hovind has argued that that means that the continents have broken up, or that there was melting glaciers, and that like the waters were splitting everybody up into different. Yeah, it's a whole stupid.
The thing is, young Earth creatures have a big problem with biogeography and human migrations, right? They don't have great ways to get everywhere, everyone and every animal and plant where they are when they need them to be there. And so they have all these wild conjectures about like continents splitting up post-flood, or post-flood like ice melts that filled in low-lying areas like Doggerland, or like the Bering land bridge across between Siberia and Alaska. And they have to come up with something, right? Because the thing is, like, okay, the flood's over. 2 platypus waddle off of the ark in like modern-day Turkey. How the hell do they get to Eastern Australia?
They're fortunate they didn't get sacrificed by Noah.
Well, platypus aren't clean, you see.
Yeah, they are definitely not clean.
Sure enough.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically furry lizards, so they're definitely not clean. That's actually not that far off. They really are a lot like furry lizards.
Do you think maybe that the platypus couple got yeeted by the volcanoes that sent the
that's
over?
That is one of the hypotheses.
Were they suborbital platypus as well?
They just got blasted into.
One of the ideas I've heard is that because the range where Mount Ararat is primarily volcanic, that maybe some of the animals were blasted by volcano blasts to Australia and somehow survived the journey through the upper atmosphere and re-entry.
God putting kangaroos and platypus into these volcanoes. So anyway, I started blasting.
yes. So before we move on, can I just point out here in this footnote that sorry, what's his name? Bodie.
Bodie Hodge?
Bodie Hodge, yes. So he has cited a source here, the Annals of the World. But I can't help but seeing that this is a source that was published by Masters Books, and now I'm wondering how many of the sources published in this book are from Masters Books. Do we all know who that is? Masters Books.
I mean, I do, but I feel like I would not give it as adequate an explanation as you might. So, because you're more familiar with them than I am.
So, Masters Books is the publishing house of Masters Seminary. Masters Seminary is the seminary arm of the ministry Grace to You, which is owned and operated by John MacArthur, the famous, very angry old man in Southern California. So yeah, it's a terrible place.
Yeah.
It's the kind of place. Listen, Master Seminary is still a school that you can only attend a degree program at Master Seminary if you have a penis and testicles.
Ugh.
Wow.
That's real.
Do they check? Like, is there a pants inspection?
Me.
You know, now I have questions.
I would be curious to see a trans man try to infiltrate just to see what happens.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
And like, do they do it? Well, of course, the other thing is if someone wanted to do that, I would not want to submit them to having their pants inspected by someone from the Masters University. So that also okay. If you're a trans man and you want to do this, be aware that that's a possibility, and if you're not okay with that possibility, please don't do it. Because that could be bad. So, yeah.
But at the same time, if you're a trans man and you want to do this,
Please report
I'm here
back.
for it.
Yeah, please report
Kind of
back.
here for it. I'm
Yeah.
kind of here for it.
I'm just saying, like, really think about it hard before you actually want to go do this.
Yes.
Vadim Marchenko says they do that for the Pope supposedly, but it's biblical what the verse
but that's
was.
like the Pope doesn't pay for the privilege.
Yeah, he is in fact paid. Yeah. Although also I understand that expressing interest in the job is one of the I also understand that expressing the interest in getting the job of Pope is one of the quickest ways to make sure no one votes for you. Which means if you don't want to be Pope, all you got to do is be part of the College of Cardinals, be like, oh yeah, Pope, that sounds cool. And there you go, you're out of the running. So, which, to be fair, I do think is probably a good way to do that. Because
it's not
anyone,
a bad policy.
Yeah,
honestly,
anyone who wants to be Pope absolutely should never be allowed to be Pope.
Yeah.
That's
same with cops.
Yeah, anyone who wants to be one probably shouldn't be one. I would actually say that's true for a lot of jobs. Like most of the jobs in the government, if you want to do that job, I don't trust you to do that job. So, Metageeky Platypus Monk Princess for $5 says, for the record, Platypi invented hang gliding and jet propulsion, but time-traveling scientists have covered it up, and the lizard people hate my kind. Nice. Awesome. You know what? I'll bet those time travelers were actually the time-traveling Hebrews coming back in time after they missed their first chance at enlightenment somehow. Because we all... Kip, are you familiar with Spirit Science's History of the World? Oh my goodness.
I am not.
Vishanti.
Oh, brother.
We might one of these days have to sit Kip down and have a watch party with the three of us at Spirit Science's History of the World. It has Martians and space Jews and Atlanteans. Wait, sorry, time-traveling space Jews. We've got to be very clear about this. All right, continental split. Yeah, okay. Great. I don't care that much. The date. We're here
Again, how'd you solve the heat problem?
Yeah, the answer is they don't. They know they don't, and they're not even trying. Okay, that's not fair. Some of them are trying, but they don't have anything. Lubelar says the desire to become a politician should prevent you from ever becoming one. Billy Connolly, and he's absolutely right. Returning to the discussion about the date, Archbishop Usher's reckoning placed the date of Babel near 2242 BC. See the chart for comparison to other events according to Usher. Usher arrives at the date due to a historian named Manetho? I don't know. He claimed that the events of Babel occurred 5 years after the birth of Peleg. I have no idea how you would get that out of the text, but like whatever. Was he right or wrong? We simply do not know. Manetho was not the best historian. Okay. Bodie, the fact that this is you saying that does not tell me anything about Manetho.
Yeah, that doesn't help your case, man.
Right? It's like Witsit gets it coming up and saying, yeah, but is he really that good of a physicist? It's like, Witsit, I have no idea, but I'm not going to take your word for it.
Just to I mean, within a historical perspective, placing the date of the incident at Babel post-dated the circulation of literally hundreds and thousands of texts in Sumerian for hundreds and hundreds of years by this point. Is that what we're going with here?
Honestly, I don't know. Maybe the footnotes will help. Whitcomb, Usher's...
To say anything about languages that we know of.
That's one of the things, right? The thing is, by Middle Egyptian period, for which we have a pretty darn good chronology from the Middle period onward, we know what animals were there. We know what a lot of the languages that were there. We know at what point languages and evolution and all this had come to, and you need to squeeze all of that into the time frame before that, because for the Old Kingdom, we don't have a lot of great chronology, right? Because a lot of it didn't survive, and even then, they weren't as good record keepers as they were by the Middle Kingdom. That's why the standard Egyptian language that you learn, if you're going to learn hieroglyphics, you start with the Middle Egyptian, because that's where we really start getting a lot of great records. But that means that you have to get like all of the evolution from all of the kinds to what is essentially identical to today by the Middle Kingdom, and you also need to get all of these languages to diverge by that time. I don't think you have time for it, because while language evolution happens faster than biological evolution, it still doesn't happen at like an infinite pace. right? Like you can listen to recordings of people speaking English from like 110 years ago. And they sound a little bit funny, but they're easily understandable. And you can read books written
Yep.
200 years ago and understand them just fine.
But
Like,
I mean, kids today are even like Shakespeare. What?
I'll be honest, even I'm like Shakespeare. What I have to double check. I have to like really think about it most of the time. And also, a lot of people who think they understand Shakespeare don't, because a lot of the words that Shakespeare is using that you think you know what he means, those words have changed meaning since then, so you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, major dates. Oh, here's a timeline. Oh my
What
goodness, this is
chart?
going to be great. Major dates according to Usher. Okay, so this is not. So to be fair, Bodie was saying I don't know if Usher is right about all of these, so we can't blame Bodie for this. He's just reporting on Usher, so we had to be fair. Creation 404 BC, global flood 2348, Tower of Babel 2242, Call of Abraham 1921. These are all BC. Time of Judges, Moses was first. Is he saying that Moses is the first judge?
Yes, I guess.
But Moses was long dead by
So
this
the-
point in the narrative. What's
14, apparently 1491 is the year that God appeared to Moses in the burning bush.
and he's counting that as part of the time of Judges?
I assume I assume so. This is an
weird,
interesting
okay.
choice. Like honestly, like it's strange to me that and I'm trying to figure this out. Like I don't think I've done a little bit full confession here. I've been doing work lately on the conquest of Canaan. By extension, that means I'm doing a lot of work on theories of the Exodus. But full disclosure, I've since I've always entered these conversations as an historian and a philologist, I had no idea that there was this fiercely heated debate amongst evangelicals and conservative Christian scholars about the dating of the Exodus, right? And I just have to say, it's strange. It's really strange to me that Bodie has the pivotal date here as God's appearing to Moses in the burning bush.
Well, to be fair, Usher
has
had
nothing to say. Oh, this is Usher, but has nothing to say about the Exodus, which is kind of like that's sort of that's the
kind of important.
watershed
Mhm.
moment. And also, I don't think this date aligns with either the early Exodus model or the late Exodus model.
Well, the
I could be
thing is,
wrong
I'm
about
pretty
that,
sure this
but
chronology predates both ideas entering scholarship.
yeah, you're right about that. So,
Okay, so
but yeah,
Time of
okay.
Kings is listed as with Saul first. Okay, at least here
Saul
that makes
first.
sense.
1095. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here, this doesn't make sense to me because the idea of Moses being counted among the judges from Judges doesn't make sense to me. But whatever.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, no, that's
yes.
that's weird.
I would be surprised if even James Usher called Moses the first of the judges.
Yeah.
Like that.
I don't know. Also,
Yeah.
the Judges have like smacks so heavily of like historical heroes that like the idea that this is a realistic like chronology of real things that happened is just like, come on, guys. This is just like the Jewish version of Hercules stories. It's pretty obvious, but whatever. I'm not in charge of any of that. Split Kingdom, 975. This, of course, assumes that there was ever a unified kingdom, which there probably never was. Well, okay, there was a kind of United Kingdom later when the idea of a unified kingdom came to be part of the national story that was never actually historical. But
it was still yeah, so this is like I mean I think you can look at a couple of different points in history here. One could suggest that when the kingdom of Samaria, which is commonly identified as Israel, collapsed in 722 BC, it created a bit of a vacuum that the kingdom of Jerusalem filled, and there was a massive migration of people from the north into the south. So I think maybe you could, but that was still Judah. Like that was still the kingdom of Jerusalem, the kingdom of Judah. Although it probably included that whole area for the first time.
Right.
And then the next critical point in history is, the mid-2nd century BCE, and
Like the Hasmoneans and whatnot.
the very first Tasmanian kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
That's what I was thinking of too.
where this idea really did take traction, but even that one, as far as I know, I have to look at this. I don't believe the Hasmoneans ever identified their kingdom as Israel. Do you know anything about that, Fish?
I don't spend a lot of time in the Hellenistic part of our history, so I wouldn't be able to tell you offhand.
That's the part we know the most about.
I know, but my interests are in
Sorry.
different eras of Jewish history.
No,
not
I get
that
it.
one. So
T. Hartman for $5 says, AIG is a prodigious parcel of plentiful pendulous protuberances. We'll take a drink for that. I gotta say, we only have 17 drinks on the board. We gotta step this up, guys. Kip needs to be unconscious by the end of the third hour.
Yeah, right?
If Kip is still, vertical, we have failed. So, Christ is born 5-4 BC.
I mean, if SBL couldn't get it done, I don't know if you're gonna do it in an hour on a stream.
Listen, guys, I had to fly home before whiskey night.
Oh no.
And I am very bitter about that.
All right, so here's one thing. So, Tower of Babel, 2242 BC. All right, so
okay,
I want to double check something because I don't trust my internal memory of ancient chronology. So I want to double check the Middle Kingdom period for Egypt, right? So basically, we're starting in 2030. Okay, so we have 200 years to get languages from the state that Bodie is going to claim. And I'm rounding here to the near century, right? But we have about 200 years to get from whatever Bodie says the state of languages are at the Tower of Babel event to the state that we know them to be in by the time of the Middle Kingdom. At which point we know that Sumerian was being written down with some sophistication, so is Egyptian. They have reports about languages in the area, and then very shortly after that we start getting, historically speaking, right? We start getting things like alphabetic scripts being derived by, Phoenicians who are spreading that around. We get a Proto-Semitic script. It's basically just hieroglyphics, but being used alphabetically. And so, we don't have that much time to go from whatever Bodhi says Babel is to the state of languages that we see in, the early to middle Iron Age, right? So, let's see. This number gives an idea of the patience of God. Oh, I don't care. Regardless, it was during
I'm getting giggly. Vulpix half fox, half Pokemon said there's sober kids in India. Drink.
Technically not a drink trigger, but I do appreciate it. Let's see. Vadimirchenko says, "Are you going to comment on the Christ born before Christ?" I mean, I don't think so. I don't think anyone has, in the last several hundred years, has claimed that the AD BC division was gotten to be spot on for the exact right year. I feel like that's just been a pretty commonly understood that whenever the historical Jesus was born, it was probably a little bit before the actual turnover from 1 BC to AD 1. Renee, intellectually gerrymandered, reborn member for 13 months at the amulet level, says, Ghidorah, my brain is sluggish, so have a Ghidorah and a sip. Thank you very much. All right. Regardless, it was during the days of Peleg that the family groups left the Babel in the plain of Shinar and traveled to different parts of the world, taking with them their own language that other families could not understand. Not long after this, Babylon, Egypt, and Greece began. I got bad news for you when it comes to archaeology for those areas. The archaeology extends way farther back than that.
Oh boy.
And with continuity, right? Let's see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agios, member for 50 months and is at the tetrapod level, says horizontal Kip, new stream goal? Yes. That is our goal. If we can get Kip to just absolutely fall over, we have won the internet for today. And I think the best way to do that is by sending those $5 super chats. So that way, when Kip falls over, it is to the wonderful sounds of me trying to speak Thing Haley. Which is... It goes okay-ish. I'll say that. It goes okay-ish. Were established prior to civilization as far as Babel. This is also just not really true. There's no particular correlation that says that, Babel, as far as like inhabitation, comes first, right? It's true that some
What
of the
does it
oldest
say here?
cities.
In a
Question.
general sense, civilizations that were closer to Babel, for example, those in the Middle East, were established prior to civilizations farther from Babel.
Question. This is going to seem real silly, but do you think he realizes that Babel and Babylon are supposed to be the same thing?
He might, because when he talks about earlier, we skipped over it, but he talked about
For example, those in Australia or the Americas.
well, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
But so when he talks about what the Tower of Babel looked like, he usually uses like Babylonian style ziggurats as his example. So I think he knows that there's a connection, at least geographically. Jester for $5 says AIG is an unscrupulously set petri dish full of tunicate. Oh,
Pelagic
gross.
tunicates.
I'm gonna take a drink. It's gross, but ugh. I need to replace the pelagic tunicate with something less gross, like I don't know, Bodie Hodge's face.
How is that less gross?
Because that's how much I loathe pelagic tunicates, Vishanti. That's how
Okay.
deeply distasteful I find them. They should be attached to the seafloor like good, hardworking, patriotic American tunicates.
Dutch tunicates.
Look, it's not my fault the Dutch flag has the same colors as the American flag. There's no way to get stars and stripes of the American flag on a tiny little 640 by 640 image.
Orange.
Orange is a good color.
It is a good color. But, you know.
Shout out Ireland.
There's not a hint of orange.
It's true.
On that Dutch flag.
I just lost my train of thought. Right. So here's the thing, right? So there's a problem. So Bodie is confusing the peopling of areas with when we get civilization. Now, civilization is a term that historians and archaeologists use, and it has to do with urbanization. And until you get significant urbanization, we don't tend to use the word civilization. Instead, we tend to use things like people group or culture, right? Because civilization... Now, we're going to talk for a second about the fact that both historiography and archaeology have some pretty racist baggage in their origins that is still reflected in their terminology and how we think about things from the past, right? One of these things was the idea that civilization is somehow ethically better and more advanced in terms of anything you can think of, right? The idea that civilization, they have more advanced languages, technology, social structures, all of that stuff. That's not true, except maybe for the technology part, because it is hard to develop lots of technology without having urban centers with people whose job it is to do that. But like rural people or ethnicities that have never been urbanized do not have less sophisticated languages or social structures, nor are they in any noticeable way less like ethically or morally advanced. That's just not true. In fact, you might argue that in some cases they're more likely to be ethically advanced, but also some of that could just be a lack of physical ability to impose their will on against other people. Whatever. But like, so when I say civilization and civilized in this context, I am just specifically speaking about significantly urbanized cultures. That's it. And that is what modern historians and archaeologists try to use the phrase as. And so I'm not trying to impose any kind of like, this is better, or the uncivilized means savage. I'm just talking about urbanization. For $5, Reggio sends 3 disgusting pelagic tunicates and says, did I hear more pelagic tunicates? No, you heard the opposite. You guys are going to be so embarrassed when I go and retroactively change the pelagic tunicate to Bodie Hodge's face and all your pelagic tunicates turn into Bodie Hodge faces. Take that, pelagic tunicate lovers. Anyway, so the archaeological record in all of these places outside of Babylon, they go back to like all these dates that Usher was giving for like when was the Tower of Babel, when was the flood. These archaeological records all go back almost equally far, right? The difference in when these places become inhabited has no correlation really to when they develop civilization. It's very weak, right? So like some of our first civilizations are like Egypt, Babel, and the Indus Valley, or not, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley,
Indus River Valley civilization,
and the Yangtze Valley
Chico.
starts of China. So those are some of our oldest known urbanized cultures in the old world. But the thing is that like human habitation of places like Europe starts just as early as human habitations of places like India or China. In fact, I believe it starts earlier than China, but I would have to double check on that. So because Bodie thinks that habitation is the same as peopling, he can't actually bring any of that data in. He can't talk about things like the Yamnaya culture that weren't urbanized, but that obviously were immigrants into Europe, displacing older populations that were also in Europe. Like, he can't have any of that in his chronology. It doesn't fit. And also, he would have to explain, well, how come all these urbanized, civilized people were leaving and then not reestablishing civilizations? So that's why he's talking about civilizations arising. Because if all you do is focus on urbanization, then yeah, sure, you can center it around what's now considered the Near or Middle East. Okay, but that doesn't actually match the real archaeology on the ground, which has previous pre-civilization cultures that have continuity to the civilizations. Right? We can watch things like tools, diets, farming techniques, pottery. All these things have continuity from their pre-civilized, in quotations, days, all the way through to urbanization, becoming a much bigger thing in places like Greece and India and China and, say, East Africa with the Swahili coast, which became undersung but very important civilization throughout much of the ancient history. Sorry, Kip, I think you had something to say there.
All I wanted to say is we actually know what the Tower of Babel is, where it was, when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we'll get into it, I expect, at some point. But I will also say that it's not what Bodie thinks it is.
No, that's because it's not what the Bible authors wrote down. They were writing a polemic against Babylon while also writing an ideology for why there's so many different people groups out there.
Yep. So
okay.
But by the way, I actually made a video all about this a couple of years ago. People should check it out on my channel when the stream's done.
Nice. We are, by the way, a third of the way to you having to hear you getting to hear me embarrassingly try to speak a conlang for basically the first time ever. A conlang which contains numerous adjective consonants, because of course it does. It's David J. Peterson. He's always going to put some nonsense like that in there. Some have objected and claimed the book is claim it took much longer to get enough people to build a huge tower. Okay, so here's the problem with this, right? We're not going to get into super into this
because he thinks it's it's actually like a like a skyscraper, right? He thinks that that's what he thinks.
I don't actually know if he thinks that, right?
Because like people built ziggurats.
Right. So I think actually that's going to be part of his claim is that it actually wasn't that big.
Oh yeah.
See, these towers are not skyscrapers by any means.
Yeah.
Right. So first one of the problems is, okay, if God is threatened, according to the text, by like a 7-story tall ziggurat, why is he not threatened by like Burj Khalifa?
Right.
Like,
it's a good question.
Also, I want to point out that Ken Ham has been trying to build a replica of the Tower of Babel at his Ark encounter. And for him, I feel like this is lose-lose, because here's the options, right? It happens, no one's language is confused, thereby demonstrating that the story isn't true. Or, perhaps more amusingly, they start building it, God actually comes down, confuses the language of the AIG employees, one, proving them right about that, but also, very amusingly, completely destroying their organization. And I'll be honest, that's the one I'm rooting for.
You know what would be amazing? You know what I'm kind of hoping happens is that they wisely decide to build just the foundation. And that's as far as they got, guys. That's it.
What if there's like a middle ground where like they're like, oh, we built a little bit of it, and then God comes down and is like, okay, I'm gonna split you into 4 different languages instead of 70, and suddenly like 3 new languages start up out of nowhere in Kentucky. All right. So yeah, his point is he doesn't think it was that big. So that's fair enough for him, but what he's touching on is actually a bigger problem, right? because creationists will take a look at things like population growth rates, and they'll try to fit a population growth curve from 8 people at the Ark to the 8 or so billion people now. And they'll say, see, if you use this realistic growth rate, you can get to the current number of people. And they're right about that. You can. But the problem is that when you trace that back, because the thing about exponential growth is it starts out pretty slow before it starts to take off. And when you get back to things like, okay, well, how many people were there to build the Tower of Babel? And the answer is like 13. How many people existed on Earth to build the pyramids? And the answer is like on the entire planet, split between like ancient Egypt, ancient China, ancient India, ancient Mesopotamia, all the people who we know were like not building urbanized centers, but were still living across the world. It's like 300. It's like, I'm sorry, how do you split 300 people across the entire Earth? And then the only other option is they can say, well, actually, people were reproducing much faster in the past. Well, okay, then you don't get to use those nice smooth curves to predict population growth and say that somehow this is evidence of your chronology. Either you can have variable population growth rates, or you can have nice smooth population growth that get us to 8 billion after 8 people, whatever, 4,400 years ago. You don't get to have both. Those are mutually contradictory, creationists. Sorry. Let's see. Richard the Lionheart apparently is important to this. Yeah, he's giving this example.
Look, a picture
of
cool.
Chateau Gaillard, probably because Chateau Gaillard was built by a small number of people. Which, okay, great. And then we get to a new chapter.
Do you know anything about the castle that Richard the Lionhearted built? I'm kind of curious about that now.
I don't. Other than that, he did that.
Oh my God, why are we... So this chapter is called Where Did the Scattering Occur? And the first subsection is Where Was the Garden of Eden?
Lord.
What the hell is going on?
I think this is actually an interesting one. Because here's the thing, right? Watch this. When we read Genesis 6 through 9, it's obvious that there was a global flood. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Why do some of the names of places and features still exist? And here's the important thing, right? We know that the flood narrative comes from older flood narratives that include things like the Sumerian king list that has pre- and post-flood kings. But here's the thing. Those pre- and post-flood kings are kings of the same cities, before and after. The ancient conception of the flood seems to be that it killed a whole bunch of people and animals, but it did not significantly alter the landscape, which is why we get pre- and post-flood geography that seems to be basically the same. And when you go to the Bible and it says that the Garden of Eden was between the Tigris and the Euphrates, Bodie is going to say, well, they just named 2 rivers the same name as the ones from the Garden of Eden afterwards. Just like people who went to, when English people showed up in North America, they started naming things, like Worcester and Gloucester and Boston and London and Derry, which, okay, then we're getting into Irish stuff, but whatever. And the thing is, okay, that's true. That is what people did. When, like, Europeans showed up in North America. They did start doing that. But when you take into the context the wider range of flood narratives, the conception of the flood in the ancient Near East more broadly, the reason that the Garden of Eden is placed between rivers with no names is because that's where it was conceptualized as being. Because, again, these were people who were seeing civilization spreading from Babylon. That's why they put ideologies about the origin of civilized groups and nations back there in Babylon. That's why we have the same idea of the same rivers and cities existing both before and after the flood. The conception of the flood in the Bible is not one that radically reshapes the earth. The only reason that creationists say that it is because they have to attempt to explain things like geology and paleontology by means of the flood. And so they have to then grab that idea and shove it into the Bible where it doesn't belong. And then they'll complain about eisegesis from the skeptics. Which is like, oh, buddy, you want to talk about eisegesis?
That geographical description of Eden is always very interesting. Because the picture that it paints is and this is one of these things, right? Like I don't know, probably a long time, I haven't really looked into it, but there was, there's a lot of rhetoric around this idea that because the Tigris River and the Euphrates River are mentioned in the text, we should be able to, like, physically locate
Yeah, but
least
where are
approximately.
the
Garden
other
of Eden.
rivers?
This is it, right? We've got these other 2 rivers in there, and there have been suggestions, like hypotheses from various people about which actual rivers these are. When I approach this text, this is one of the clear indications to me that this is almost certainly mythological, because in the first place, if you read it carefully, you'll realize that it's like there's like it's the Eden is at the headwaters, and everything comes out of it. But then one of the rivers, and I don't remember which one offhand, actually it runs in like a circle. And I mean, rivers just don't do that.
Yeah, they don't.
In the first place. But I think this is
Unless
one of
they're
the
lazy
clear
rivers.
Okay.
From water parks, you know, the lazy river, we get into the tube and it's just a circle.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Sure. Okay, there we go. But I think this is one of the clear indicators that this is actually a myth, and everybody understood that this was supposed to be a myth, right? Because it provides us a mythical picture of the world, not one that people necessarily understood to conform to physical reality, but a picture also of kind of an impossible world.
You know, interestingly, right? The Garden of Eden seems to be not on Earth in the Quran.
That is interesting. Maybe they were reading the text correctly.
Well, yeah,
not technically on Earth in the Kabbalah either.
Yeah, I mean, so I wonder if there is actually some connection there. I don't know. Let's see, we got a couple super chats. Nether6 Hair for €2 says, God isn't worried. Saudis allow no unions. There's a lot of things they don't allow there, like allowing school children to flee from burning school buildings if they don't have their hair covered. That's another thing they don't allow there.
But they love them some WWE professional wrestling, don't they?
I mean, who doesn't really?
And American Golf.
Yes. And apparently linear cities for some reason. To be fair, that's that one guy who it's never going to happen. It's just never. Stop trying to make the line happen. It's not going to happen. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, Hail Nero, Hail Daps, Hail Dr. Kill, and Vish, and hail the coming Kentucky language apocalypse. Honestly, there are very few things that make me want to believe that the Tower of Babel is literally true, as the possibility that it might destroy AIG as a result of a new language confusion. That would be amazing on so many levels. And okay, look, if you're up there or wherever, please confuse their languages. It would be so cool, right? Just please. I don't ask for a lot. There's many more important things I could be asking for, but no, please. If you're going to do anything, do this. Confuse the languages of AIG, please. Okay. Now we've covered our bases there. Anyone else? I don't care if you normally pray or not. Just try it this time. Ask whatever deities are out there to please confuse the languages of AIG, because it would be the most amazing troll that could ever happen. I would love it. Some pre-flood and post-flood references. I don't care that much.
What are you eating, Vish?
Doritos.
All right.
I feel like there was a missed opportunity for me to go get Doritos.
All right, so here is a 2005.
I love Cheetos.
They're really good.
Also, I want to spotlight that Sir Mix-a-Lot in the chat says, God, the ultimate conlinger.
You know, that would technically make that the case, yeah. God's conlings are so awesome, they became all of the netlings. I mean, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is according to AIG, apparently, at least as of 2005, where they thought a probable location for the Tower of Babel is. And you know what? Based on the fact that, we know what ziggurat it's probably referencing. We know when that ziggurat was built and abandoned, because that's another thing, is the ziggurat is probably based on was abandoned, and this was probably making fun of that fact, that there's just an abandoned, unfinished ziggurat out in the middle of the desert. So yeah, I do actually think this is reasonable. So to answer your earlier question, yeah, he does seem to have a reasonable grasp as to geographically where this story is located.
Now, I mean, I'm curious if he's part of me is curious now if the location is actual ancient Babylon or if it's Ididu, I mean, it looks like he's actually got it in the right place in actual Babylon.
Yeah. And
Way
also,
to go,
I mean,
Bodie.
yeah,
That's
hey, look, AIG doesn't get everything wrong, right? They just get almost everything wrong. And there's a difference. Grayson Hawk, who is a friend of the channel and who actually I hung out with in IRL not that long ago.
Grayson.
Yeah, Grayson was in town, and I got a random message. He's like, "Hey, man, want to get breakfast?" And I'm like, I'm just waking up. Can we get lunch? So yeah, we got lunch. We got some enchiladas, and yeah, had fun. Grayson Hawk for $4.99 says the other two rivers could be the quote two deeps from the Ugaritic descriptions of El's abode.
Oh,
What do you think about that?
touche, Grayson. Touche, Grayson. Yeah. I mean, I think I'll allow it. That's not the direction I go, but you know, it's a fun thing about a lot of this is because we don't know. There does seem to be a variety of plausible options.
Yeah,
of course, AIG doesn't deal with plausible options, but
no,
yeah, like
they deal
that's
strictly
cool.
in implausible
like it.
options or
Kinda
impossible.
like it. Yes, strictly, yes.
Although to be fair, that's not actually technically true because this is a plausible location. So like,
No,
you know.
this right, yes. So I mean, no, but he's talking about the Garden of Eden, right?
Yeah.
He's not talking about.
Well, no, this is Tower
about
of
the
Babel. This map is
Yeah.
Tower of Babel.
Grayson was talking about the Garden of
Right.
Eden.
Yeah, sorry. Metageeky Platypus Monk Princess member for 1 month says, "May the Kentucky Apocalypse give Mitch aphasia with a Mothra." Yeah, you know what? Aphasic Mitch would definitely be better than non-aphasic Mitch. Also, recently, Mitch McConnell came out and was saying that he does not support the Trump tariffs and whatnot, and he thinks it's a bad idea. Like, hey,
He's also arguing that we should keep the polio vaccine because, you know, that's now a thing that people are advocating that we get rid of. So, yeah, I love this timeline.
Here's my response to Mitch. Hey, Mitch, remember that time when you were like the Republican whip? And you could have gotten together enough votes to impeach the incoming president and therefore allow all of his various things like not allowing him back on the ballot, preventing this from ever becoming a thing. Mitch McConnell is at least as much to blame for the possibility of the polio vaccine going away and bringing back iron lungs as anyone else is.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, Mitch.
Yep.
When your great-grandkids end up paralyzed for life in a big tube of metal, it's your goddamn fault. Sorry. We'll get to the next page. Or what is it? Was the Tower of Babel built or not?
Are you ever going to let me read again? Because I haven't talked for like an
I'm
hour.
sorry. You know what? I did just start taking over the reading.
Jesus Christ.
Why don't you read the next two
I
paragraphs?
wasn't going to say anything because I'm Canadian. But
why don't you read down to here, and then we'll have Kip read from here. How about that?
Okay.
How about I read past that? Because
just let her
you
read
do,
what
like,
the fuck.
All right,
she
fine.
wants.
I'm just trying to come up with a good compromise, but sure, just keep reading until you want to stop. Let me know.
Kip wasn't going to say anything, and then I was going to get, like, irritated at him later. Okay. Illustration... Mr. Fallback on being Canadian here. Illustrations of the Tower of Babel range from a completed ziggurat to a partially...
given fish. Sorry.
He's interrupting.
Canadian recovery. Ziggurat to a partially completed structure to a simple foundation! Why the discrepancy? Was it completed? According to most translations, the Tower of Babel was built. According to Genesis 11:5. Why did he put that in parentheses? That wasn't necessary.
Whatever. He's trying to do
weird.
He's trying to do inline citations, but only for the Bible, I think. Which is weird, but whatever.
And it was the city that they stopped building. Though the Septuagint Greek translation adds in that the tower ceased to be built as well. This is done without any Hebrew textual basis. Handful of translations say building instead of built or builded, likely for this reason.
So, fun fact, everyone. The Septuagint likes to do a lot of things that are not provided by the Hebrew. There's no textual basis for
not
them.
Provided by the Masoretic text, but obviously provided by the actual Hebrew text that they were working with.
Listen,
Kip, you're forgetting.
Not always, though. Not always, though, Dapper. Because one of the things that the Septuagint is also doing, besides, faithfully translating its Hebrew version of these stories, is attempting to provide clear interpretations of problems and to sort out issues.
Yeah, but see, I heard from Amon
With
Hillman that the Septuagint might be the original.
Yes, you did.
Kip's about to have an aneurysm right now.
I feel like I need an actual drink.
Well, you know what? We'll take a drink. That was stupid enough. My brother actually sent me an Amon Hillman recording, and I was just like, "Oh no."
God.
To be fair, he was sending it to me because he wanted my assessment because he trusts me more than Amon Hillman. Which, thank you, brother. You should.
Thank you, brother. Yes.
Thank you, brother. Also, the
Sorry,
chat,
Vish.
talking about Mitch McConnell, it's the reason he's arguing against banning the polio vaccine is because he survived polio.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a detail that maybe not enough people are taking into the equation, and that just shows you how shitty he is, because he doesn't care about things unless they directly impact him personally.
I mean,
Ghoul.
to be fair, welcome to mainstream American politics.
Well, yeah.
It's just
Specifically the Republicans, but yeah.
It's
Okay.
It's a bigger problem there, but there's plenty of Democrats who don't care about urgent problems until they affect either their voters or their family.
Well, specifically their corporate donors.
Well,
That's their difference. Okay, so some have thought that the Hebrew wording does not mean it was built, but the word for built or building is bana or banal, banu, and is used in a perfect tense. What?
Wait, what? What is that word?
Hey, remember
Banu.
that time that I said that Bodie doesn't know any Hebrew at all?
I think.
Does he mean Banav?
Yeah. So he's trying to make a distinction here between the verb poorly, between a verb and a nominal form, I think, but that looks like an attempt at an infinitive to me. That's bizarre.
And now he's saying it's in the perfect tense, which,
Banu.
guys, in case you guys don't know, perfect is an aspect. It's not a tense. Yeah. And also, we're working with a stratum from Hebrew where the idea of the difference between tense and aspect is a little iffy. A
little bit.
Yeah, so Grunewald Gurnison, who's been a member for 12 months and is at the amnio level, says the fact that Mitch is old enough to have had polio is pretty damning. I think the fact that he's still in office while being that old is damning. The fact that he is that old, I mean, hey, that's just being old.
And just having blue screen moments in the middle of press conferences,
Yeah, he's clearly not fit to do that job. Very obviously.
But hey, we let Dianne Feinstein just rot in office, so why not him too?
Yeah, that was basically elder abuse. I'm not okay with that. Mm-hmm. This is a woman who did not know where she was most of the time. And she's being wheeled around by, her staff to go places and try to participate. And, at one point she was asked to, stand up to give a vote. And she just starts, launching into a speech about, the importance of some bill or another. This is a woman who should have been allowed to, at least the last 5 or 6 years of her life, spend some time surrounded by, friends and family in a calm environment where she can just, relax for a little while. But nope.
Nah.
Can't have a special election because honestly, that means a different person who isn't Nancy Pelosi's buddy might get elected.
Well, I don't have a lot of sympathy because she nearly blew the Night Stalker case. Couldn't keep her freaking mouth shut.
Look,
so
there's a lot of people I don't have.
She also yelled at kids for pushing her on climate change. So
y'all are talking
she was
American,
a terrible person.
So I don't know what the fuck.
We'll just say this.
Anyway,
a U.S. senator who herself had a lot of problems in her past was then abused after she basically became senile by her staff and other senators because they didn't want a special election to fill her seat because she normally should have left because of, incompetency, because of severe medical problems. It was a whole...
Our country's run by very mean, very spiteful gerontocrats.
Who won't even be nice to each other.
Nope.
All right, so let's see.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, commentators...
And I feel like I'm having an aneurysm because I read ahead. Go ahead, Vish.
Commentators Kyle and Delitzsch believing that it was built significant. Kaelin Dillage. Thank you. It was built significantly, but not entirely. Say of this word usage in Genesis 11:5 that the perfect, but I'm assuming that's Benoff, refers to the building as when finished up to a certain point. So the question is how complete? Do you know who Hebraeus Dr. Russell Fuller is?
Oh, sure I do. Russell's good. But
How badly is Bodie like ruining this work?
So like seriously, wait a minute. So he scroll up for a minute. Where is the I'd be very interested to know what on earth Russell Fuller has actually written stuff like competent things on the Dead Sea Scrolls. Scroll up. That's not point. Where is the footnote?
Ziggurat to a partially completed structure to a simple foundation.
That's special thanks to
Wait,
Hebrews.
what? Sorry, hold on. Go back. Sorry, I'm drinking, so I go slower. Illustrations of the power range from complete to partially complete structure.
That's footnote 1.
So
which
he needed Russell Fuller to point that out to him.
It's possible that Russell Fuller made that comment as part of a longer set of comments that he gave to Bodie, and that he's drawing
like
on
the
that
way-
part now. That's the
So
charitable interpretation.
The crazy thing about this is that he presents this. Go back down to the actual footnote. Special thanks to Hebraeus Dr. Russell Fuller for his comments on this topic. Like he almost kind of presents this as if it's. Now I'm confused. Like, is this a personal communication that he's had with Dr. Fuller, which I seriously doubt, or has he read this?
I don't know
somewhere, and he's not citing it.
Here's my guess. Well, first we want to say Regios for $5 says Godzilla, Mothra, and Ghidorah. So we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. So here's my guess, and this is me being as charitable as I reasonably can be while taking into account what I have before me. So this is not necessarily the most likely, but this is what I would go with until a less charitable interpretation was shown be more likely, and this one was disconfirmed. I think what might have happened is that Bodie Hodge wrote to Dr. Russell Fuller and asked for comments about the Tower of Babel broadly, and might have had in it questions about like what the text indicates for level of completion, location, just a bunch of stuff, right? Bodie just kind of broadly asking for Dr. Fuller's like quick opinion on this. And that somewhere in that, Dr. Fuller mentioned that we don't have an unambiguous way to determine how much it was finished, and that different depictions have disagreed, and so we just don't know. And then he is using that personal correspondence here because...
Oh my god.
Now, to be fair, he should cite it as personal correspondence, because there's a thing you can do for that, right? Like if you're writing a paper or an academic book, and you get something for personal correspondence, there's a way to cite that. Bodie isn't doing that, so at the very least, he's failing to do that, but I don't think it's necessary to say that he's failing to cite an actual publication from Dr. Fuller.
Can we talk about this second footnote here?
After we read, Heather talks to Randos on Trains Coon's super chat, which is for $5, and says, I'm taking a stand against the misuse of the word aneurysm. It's not a synonym for stroke, folks. That's true, it's not.
This is the last of the Japanese whiskey, you guys.
Uh-oh.
It's empty. That's it. Can we talk about this?
Yes.
This footnote here,
yes.
Number 2. Keel. Like, why the fuck is it Keel and Franz Delitzsch? It's
Kip now owes me a $10 super chat. He dropped the second F-bomb.
I believe it's I think it's Constantine Keel. I could be wrong about that, but it's like this is just sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, and this is an historical landmark work, right? These are,
you gotta put it more to the center. Your right and left margins are cut off.
God, fuck. There we go.
Now you owe me $20.
Y'all can see that, right? I owe you that?
Yeah, that's the rule. When you come on the stream, if you drop the second F-bomb or the third or subsequent, it's $10 super chat for each one.
You understand that would be like a mortgage payment for me, right?
Your mortgage payment is only $20?
American, yes.
Wow, I got to move to Canada. Jeez.
All right.
So this is a landmark work in the history of biblical scholarship. Kiel and Delitzsch were German theologians
That makes sense.
in the
Well, then why is it Keel and not Kyle? It's the EI. Bruh.
Let's not worry about it. Let's let Kip
Maybe I'm
finish
wrong.
the sentence.
maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry, Vish. But I'm deep into the whiskey. So the but this was published in the, like, my version. Look at his citation here. Commentary on the Old Testament, 2006.
I think that's when the PDF was uploaded. Because he's getting this from a
10
PDF.
volumes. This is the whole thing. 10 volumes. NC Bible Info, Mood Res, Moses, Kyle Delitzsch, Genesis PDF. So, like, this is a collection of commentaries that was published in, I think, the 1920s, 1930s. One of the things, it's a complete Old Testament commentary on the Bible. Lots of it, as you know, as is the case with biblical scholarship from before the Second World War, is notoriously anti-Semitic, soft, Nazi propaganda. So lots of people just don't use it for that. But let's be clear here that this is a source that's almost 100 years old. It's not something that anybody seriously uses anymore. And I'll just make the point here. I think this is what he's getting at. Verses 5 subsequent, Jehovah, that's actually written in the commentary here, came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men had built. He says the perfect Banav. That's what Bodie's referring to. It's Banav.
Okay.
Is
it's because Bodie is an evangelical, and evangelicals love to use the W pronunciation for Vav. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which, to be fair, it's the older It's the older pronunciation. I'm not going to say they're wrong. They're just not in keeping with most modern Jewish practice.
Listen to what he's doing here. So the perfect Banav refers to the building as one finished up to a certain point. Now, in the first place, Bodie has... Well, look at what he's written here. The word for built/building is bana/ I think that's supposed to be Banav, as Vish pointed out.
Where's he getting the U?
So I don't know. Like, that's just it, right? And I think this is a big part of the problem. Bana is the verbal root. So he's got that corresponding to the first one correctly. It means to build. Okay? But the second one, Banav, does not mean building. It doesn't. This is the third masculine plural perfect form of the verb. Banav means they built. Why he's even including that here is a mystery to someone who actually knows the language, and an absolute clear indicator to me that he does not know what the fuck he's talking about.
All right. Speaking of which, Reggio's for $30 says, understandable the Dr. Kill keeps swearing while going through the book. That was to cover your first three. And now, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong. I'm going to go with Turgipes. And if that's wrong, please let me know. With their first super chat on the channel, says this goes towards Kip's F-Bomb fund with €23.99, which means you have 2 left that are still funded. So, there you go. And I think we did Yep, the goal ended. We only got 9 out of the 15. So you guys have to wait. Do you hear me? Sorry. You have to wait to hear me try to pronounce St. Haley. All right. So let's keep going. We still have another.
Who's reading next? Is Vish still reading?
That's up to her.
Oh, I'm gonna keep reading.
Okay.
Yeah, keep reading.
So the question is, how complete? Perhaps some finishing touches were necessary? This is just wild speculation. But for the most part, it was complete. The tower was not merely a foundation, and so this may be an option, though this author is not entirely convinced.
What's with this
Can you scroll down a little?
third person? I don't know. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry,
If
I was
one
answering your
argued that the
question.
tower was not
There was-
If one argued that the tower was not built to any significant degree, then that person would have to argue that hosts of structures in the Old Testament were also not built, such as the temple, many houses, many cities,
my
and so
God,
on,
I
since
wanna-
they all used to
I
be
wanna
the same
say
word
the.
in
Can
it.
I want to say the F word so bad.
You've got two more. I'm going to take a drink.
Ugh. Jesus fucking Christ!
Bodie. This is basic principle that I want you to understand, Bodie, if you ever watch this, which you probably won't, but maybe you will. Words don't always mean the exact same thing in the exact same context. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can say they built, even in English, right? If I said, well, they built this house, and then I point to an unfinished house, what I mean is they built as much of it as got done. If I say they built this house too, and I point to a finished house, I mean they finished it. It depends on the subject of the verb as to how much of it was built. All that they built means is that there was building going on, they were doing it, and now they're not doing it.
Or not.
That's it.
It might not even mean that though.
Yeah,
Probably.
that's the most likely what it means. Yeah, but it doesn't even
yes.
even then. It's not necessarily just that. There's this thing called semantics, Bodie, and words tend not to have very, 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 very narrow semantic ranges. They tend to have somewhat broad semantic language, or semantic, scopes.
I'm worried about asking, but I think we need to look at these footnotes here for 1 Kings 10:4, 9:24,
I mean,
and the other
I
one.
think they're just the actual verses.
And the Queen of Sheba had seen all the wisdom
The
of
house that he had
Solomon
built.
and the house that he had built. 1 Kings 9:24. But Pharaoh's daughter came up from the city of David to her house, which Solomon had. Which Solomon had built for her, and the children of Reuben built Heshbon, and God, I'm so drunk.
So here's the thing about these.
We haven't got you horizontal yet. So.
Here's the thing about these
These
contexts, buddy. Remember earlier how
Yeah.
we were talking about how you can get across the semantic meaning of a pluperfect, even though Hebrew doesn't have a pluperfect form. One of the ways that you can do that is by talking about something you already know was done by the time the action of the verb is taking place, and that verb itself is in the past, right? So you're using a time reference to talk about the completeness of the action of the verb. That's what's happening here. And also in the narrative, in context, we know that these buildings were finished by the context. You know what we don't have for the story of the Tower of Babel? Any of that. Which means, am I going to say that the Tower of Babel, according to the text, was definitely finished? No. Was it definitely unfinished? No. But you don't get to use these as your evidence in either case, because these aren't the same context. These are actually using the context and other constructions to indicate that the action was finished by the time of the past action of the main verb. That's the difference here. That's a big difference. That's significant. You don't get to just sweep these up as if you went to like Strong's Concordance and found every instance of Banav, and then you just started writing them down. That's exactly what's happening.
That's what he
That's
did,
what's
though.
happening here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Look,
Yep.
a concordance is not a terribly useful tool if you do not speak the language. In fact, if you do speak the language, I would say you probably don't need a concordance, which means concordances are mostly worthless. Don't bother with them.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Yes.
feel like you need to use a concordance, here's my suggestion. Do the work to learn the language, and then toss out the concordance. Get a lexicon, get a grammar, get to work.
I used to have one.
I
A
mean,
concordance.
I'm pretty sure I did at some point.
I don't anymore.
Yeah. There's really no good reason to have them. sometimes they give okay glosses for words. That's the most I can say for them. Is sometimes they give okay glosses. And in case you guys don't know, a gloss is usually a 1 or 2 word translation for a word that gives you a sense of what it's supposed to mean in the target language, right? Like we were talking about before, a gloss for the word goy in Hebrew might just be nation, but like we talked about, that's just a gloss. That does not actually tell you what the word means, because those words don't mean the same thing exactly. They overlap a lot, but that's why glosses are dangerous. Glosses are just for quick reference. You want to get a lexicon, because lexicons give you full definitions, they give you lists of other uses, they give you cognates in other languages.
Cognates!
So that you can compare the meaning across languages in case you're trying to use like historical linguistics to try to tease out the meaning of an ancient text for which there is no great lexicon from the time. They give you all these things. They'll also tell you other places where it's used, just like a concordance will. Get a real lexicon, guys, if you're going to try to do this kind of thing.
That's one of those things that you really do need to get a lexicon for, especially like I love the Hollow. BDB's not bad, but Hollow's my go-to
BDB's
because
dated,
hey,
but useful.
Yeah, it's dated and
moderately useful, but yeah,
I like Hollow because they're
standard.
Popox Legomenon, baby.
You know what also works, guys?
This is show and tell with Kip, who is confirmed to have legs. Yes.
He does have legs, yeah.
I don't think we can confirm that for Vishanti. So, obviously, you can see my legs.
If not Halot, Sefer Malim works. Marcus Jastro, that's also a very good one. And this one actually includes, uses that. Yeah, so that one actually includes rabbinic and Aramaic. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess Aramaic, but most technically Aramaisms, because
taking Aramaic and putting it into Rabbinic Hebrew. Yeah.
Yep. So.
Yep. So yeah, guys, don't use a concordance. That's the takeaway. If you take away one thing from this entire stream, get something better than a concordance. Don't use a concordance.
Don't use Strongs.
Yeah, especially Strongs.
That's the quickest way for like anyone who does know what they're talking about when it comes to these languages to know that you don't know what you're talking about is if you just start quoting Strongs.
Jeez.
Yep.
It's the worst thing you could do.
The only thing I can see as a use for Strongs is to find those verses, and then if you already know the language, then you can compare the uses, and you just use Strong's Concordance to figure out where those verses were. That's the only use I can think of for Strong's Concordance, and many lexicons will give you that information anyway. So just use the lexicon. Or a search function. You're reading the Bible online, probably. Just use a search function.
You have to think he's got access to some, even to like a shit piece of biblical software like BibleWorks or Logos, right? Like he's got access to these things.
Alex Markle says we don't know if your human suit has legs. True, it might not.
Mine does.
Yeah, we confirmed that. Actually, while you had your headphones off, we were like, well, Kip has legs, confirmed. I just want to look at the sentence, though. The LXX, which means he just reads this as LXX, also known as the Septuagint.
Yep.
He reads this as LXX. I'm drinking. I'm drinking. Can you imagine going around in conversation and saying, well, you know, the LXX? Like,
Do you think... No, let's keep going. Hang on. He added the word tower to Genesis 11:8 in their translation without biblical warrant. And this has likely been the main reason some have thought the tower was only partially...
How many do I have left? I'm sorry.
I think 2?
One?
1 or 2.
Maybe 2?
Might be 2.
Fuck me.
The Septuagint is good in many places.
That counts as 1, right?
No, it counts as 2. You're
but
done.
It is not considered a good translation in Genesis, as it distorts the ages of the patriarchs. This translates sons as angels. Oh my god, this is incredible. Oh my god, I am dying. It says it mistranslates sons as angels in Genesis 6:2. Oh my god, it makes the philosophy of the day by having a solid dome to translating spans.
No, that is the translation. That is what is meant. I'm taking a drink.
That's what it means. The standard Hebrew Masoretic text makes it clear that it was not the tower built But the city that seems to be built, as any clarification was, wow,
Okay.
I don't even know where to start with
Wait,
how wrong this
I
is.
have to go back.
Hold on. First of all, the ancient Greeks, by the time the Septuagint was being translated, did not believe that there was a dome over the earth. They believed in celestial
They knew
spheres.
they knew the Earth was a globe,
Right.
and they had almost gotten within a very narrow margin of the accurate.
Yeah, they were like 10% off.
diameter.
This is good many places, but not so considered good translation.
Bodie is literally pointing out an area where the Septuagint is accurate. And because it's not accurate to reality, because that's a problem for the Bible itself. The Bible is wrong about the dome of the earth. But because the Septuagint agrees with what the Bible says,
guys,
it's not wrong.
This maybe
painful.
Maybe Cliff Connectly is getting his information from Bodie Hodge. Did you see this?
God.
Yesterday, Cliff and Stuart Connectly had a debate with Alex O'Connor and some guy about the existence of God, and Cliff Connectly, with his full chest, like, stood up there and practically screamed at the camera how utterly absurd it is to think that there could be a solid dome over the earth in Genesis.
Literally, that's
chapter 1.
what Rakia means.
My guy, that's what the word means.
Yeah, there's a reason that traditionally
It's
everyone has
there.
translated it that way. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry to all of you who want to take Genesis 1 literally. But the Bible in Genesis 1 says that there's a solid dome over a flat earth.
It's taking the Bible literally.
Yep. If you want to take the Bible literally, the flat earthers are right. All right, Regios with $100 for Super Chats. Thank you so much. Says, general fun for F-bombs. Dapper and Vishanti are doing good holding back, but film one may slip. As for Dr. Kip, they're expected now. LOL. Thank you so. That is extremely
really good.
generous. All right, but we are about to start wrapping things up. We will be continuing on because, for one thing, we haven't gotten Dr. Kip to have a heart attack yet. So, you know.
Do I need to stand up at this point?
Well, I mean, it would at least provide further evidence.
There is a place for you to collapse right behind you.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah, you might need to just collapse.
at least you're safe.
Do I need to stand up, people?
You know what? Here we go.
Is he going to take a field sobriety test for a live stream?
All right. Here's what we're going to do.
We could.
Do
did
we
you see that?
need Kip to do a I can't spell sobriety test? Yes, no. But we're gonna start doing some wrap up things.
He's getting white girl wasted right now.
What is this? I need to know what I need to do here.
Oh no, it'll be a surprise if they vote yes.
Okay.
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 Okay. There are 12 votes.
So we're gonna start wrapping some stuff up. So Vishanti, do you have anything that you want to tell people that's coming up?
Yes, actually, I do. Let me copy this link. Okay. So I have a fundraiser going on for myself to stay afloat for like the next, I guess, 6 to 8 weeks. Because I am down to my last few dollars in the bank, and all of the job applications that I have been sending out, none of them have replied to me. So it is getting very demoralizing, and I would like to remain housed until the moment that I'm able to find employment. So I'm going to put that link in the chat.
This is not the wish list. This is
not the wish list. Yeah, this is a little more useful to me. So it will help me stay housed, and it will help me, continue going to any necessary doctor's appointments. So if you are able to give anything or donate or share it with other people who might be able to, that would be very much appreciated. So.
All right. And I will, please remind me, I will start adding that to some videos.
Okay.
So that people can find that, because I'll probably try to promote that for the next, as while it's
something.
going.
If people can't give money to something that they can do, just in the interim, Vish published a video, a mirror on her stream, on her channel. Sorry.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, of our conversation about SBL. And seriously, people, I don't care if you care about what we talk about. Just turn it on and watch it, or leave it on and give it some attention. Because even a little bit helps. If you can't actually give money, do that much.
Yeah, because I'm not even monetized. My channel doesn't have the watch hours yet, so
that would help.
Let's get her
the
there,
subscribers.
Yeah,
But
look, even when you get there, you're going to be a far cry from being able to support yourself. But every bit helps.
No
every
question.
single cent.
But
so,
it's something.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the Triceratops is saying that in the stream there's photographic proof that both Kip and I have legs.
Sure, and also I published the picture of you and I at the museum, and you had legs in that picture.
You
too.
did.
Yeah, I was gonna say they already knew that I had legs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's just my human suit
My
that
legs-
remains the question.
My legs are short though.
Well, I mean, that just makes you like a dwarf from D&D.
well,
Plus, you got the beard.
listen, you're not
Okay.
as short as Mark Luchter, who could literally play comic accurate Wolverine.
True. I'm about as short as Mark Luchter is wide at the shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Luchter is built like comic accurate Wolverine.
All right, I have entered
It's
a new
like-
hashtag into the chat. Hashtag Kip is a D&D dwarf. So use that hashtag, everybody.
I don't know. I'm not.
Are you sure? Because
I'm not
you were
that
just drinking
short.
you were just drinking whiskey on stream. You have a beard. You're talking about your short legs.
Fair enough.
You sound
Okay.
like one to me.
I have a very full head of hair.
Yep. Have you ever yearned for the mines like a small child might?
Listen, I feel
That's a
like
yes.
if I answer that
That's a
question,
yes.
I'm going to implicate myself.
My unfinished sock for $5 says, "Don't use a crappy concordance. Like and share the stream instead." Yes.
Yes.
Also, you say
Yes.
crappy concordance like there are other options. They're just not useful texts. They're just not that handy.
They're not.
If the only people who need them shouldn't bother because you don't know the language well enough. And if you know the language well enough, you don't need them.
Can somebody needs to help me because I don't know who Johnny Bravo is.
That is
He's a cartoon character with a very big blonde pompadour and sunglasses.
Yeah.
Famous for doing a dance called the monkey.
and also famous for being the star of the show.
Am I built
Johnny
like
Bravo.
Am I built like Johnny Bravo?
Yeah, he has a bit of a short leg thing going on. That's kind of like the style for that cartoon.
No, you're not built
No?
like Johnny.
Yeah, but
Bravo.
I wouldn't actually say it because he also has much like weirdly broad, like comically broad, like torso. So,
Okay.
Anyway, so we are going to start. So
Is
Kip,
Mark Luchter built like Johnny Bravo?
Yes, but like a fraction of the height, proportionally. I still
Mark
say he's comic
Luchter
accurate
is-
Wolverine, literally.
Is like fucking short, you guys. He is like
He comic accurate
crazy.
Wolverine,
yes.
but he's built like a tank.
Yeah.
Alex Markle
So-
says, "Dapper Dinosaur, I yearn for the mines, and I'm almost 29." Well, that's just because you never left behind your childhood wonder for the mines. Look, guys,
Yeah.
child labor laws are killing this country. We need to get the kids back into the mines.
Yeah.
Black lung for everybody.
Yeah. Look, if you don't have black lung by the time you're 8, have you really lived? And the answer is no.
All of your meager wages going to the company store
You know what?
so that you can buy groceries.
we need to have a vaccine for black lung, so that way the RFK Jr. can ban it. Kip, do you have anything coming up that people should know about?
I mean, listen, guys, there's a lot going on. If you haven't noticed, somehow on the same day this last week, there were not streams. That's the wrong word. That's the drunk word. My glass is almost empty. There were videos dropped by Rationality Rules and Apology on the same day.
Yeah.
There is literally
Over 5 hours of video.
Yeah. So Rationality Rules published part 2 of our I have no idea how many parts series that Dr. Josh Bowen and I are doing with him in order to address the many hilariously stupid complaints that inspiring philosophy and one now disgraced Egyptologist has about our view of the Exodus and the conquest. So go check that out on Rationality Rules. We also published a 3-hour video
Magnum opus.
about slavery in the Bible in the ancient Near East. This was made in response to Sean McDowell and fellow professor of Bible at Biola University, Dr. Carmen Imes, and a discussion.
Who
a disgusting
herself,
conversation.
She made morally reprehensible arguments.
It's
for the
sad
text.
because I don't think this is who she is, guys. I just
Oh
don't.
no,
believe
that is who she is. When people tell you who they are, believe them. Believe them.
I struggle to do it, but it's bad.
It's because you're a good person. And I know you want to believe the best about people, but I quite literally could not conceal my disdain for her if I were to meet her in person.
Yeah.
Like, I would inform her, like, hey, you're morally reprehensible. Good job. And for reasons you don't have to be.
Yeah. But anyways,
Disgusting.
if you haven't seen it already, go watch it on Apologia's channel. Vish and I did a stream last week addressing the basically weighing in on this. I don't know if you noticed this happened, but Wes Huff, who is a PhD student at the University of Toronto, he had an exchange with what's his name? Billy Carson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
And absolutely. So let's be frank. Let's be clear. Let's be honest. Wes Huff did a service. He did a community service in setting straight the absolute nonsense of Billy Carson. But in the stream that Vish and I made last week, we provide some critical insight into the problem of Wes Huff's apologetics generally speaking. When it comes to the Bible, I think everyone should check that out. This is something I haven't spoken to Vish about yet, but I might be doing a stream this next week. I mentioned it briefly. Stuart and Cliff Connectley did a debate with Alex O'Connor and some guy.
Yeah,
I think he's like an
we can talk about that.
Lord, and I hate those fucking guys. But whoops, there we go.
Look, there's a reason Regios gave $100 to the F-bomb.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, all right. So, but listen, Cliff and Stuart said like stupid shit on a stream about the Bible, and I'm all about fixing the stupid shit that people say about the Bible on the internet. So maybe there's a stream coming this week about that. And
Nice.
one more thing, I had a conversation with two more things. Sorry, I had a conversation last month with Dr. Heath Durrell, who literally wrote the book about child sacrifice in ancient Israel. Vish, you've watched the video. It's 2 hours long.
It's good. It's good.
Yep. Yeah. It's on my Patreon. If you want to watch it early, go subscribe to my Patreon. I don't care if you subscribe just to watch it and then you cancel your subscription. But if you want early access, go watch that. I'm going to be publishing that in 2 parts over the course of the next several weeks on my YouTube channel. I just edited a video interview that Dr. Joshua Bowen and I had with Amahai Mazar, who is a literal god in the field of Levantine archaeology discussing the state of Bronze Age and early Iron Age Canaan. It's 38 minutes long. I'm going to be publishing that also to my Patreon in the next couple of weeks. And yes, I am drunk. Genesis, the two catty kitty. I am. And I'm just this is where we are. 3 hours and this is where we are.
You only started drinking for the last hour.
Yeah, it's true, right? And shit, guys, this is crazy shit, right? Anyways, if you want to see that, it's going to be on my Patreon probably in the next several days, and that is going to be published probably in January at some time. So there's a lot going on. I'm sorry for dominating.
It's okay.
The last several minutes, but I'm Canadian.
There's a few things. First, I want to say thank you so much. Vishanti's fundraiser, as of last I checked, was a few seconds ago, was currently 16% funded. So,
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yep.
I didn't refresh the tab.
Wow, that's awesome.
Oh my god, okay.
So thank you so
thank
much.
you.
That really does it. Look, something I was saying earlier in the Discord was like, we can help each other, right? Like, I think everyone is expecting that some of us are going to need help in the next few months and years. And one of the important ways that you can help get through tough times is by just banding together, help people who need help.
Mutual aid.
When someone is,
Aid.
needs, some money to pay the rent, help out. If someone is running out of grocery money, we can get that person set up with a wish list for like Target or Amazon or something, and we can get them some non-perishable food sent out to them. We can band together and we can help each other out. You guys are, you're literally helping me every single month make sure that I am neither homeless nor starving. So that is something we can pool our resources and help each other with. So, and I really want to encourage that, because you know what? The more we stick together, the better off we'll be in the next few years. So, I do want to point out what's going to come up next on this channel. So, on Tuesday, we are doing Matt with Maddie. We're going to be with not Raw Matt. This is Matt Powell this time, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
So he is the less. He says fewer crazy things about himself and about nutrition, but he's at least as dumb about science. So, Then so that's going to be Tuesday at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. Then on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, Jeffrey Tompkins and the Mysteries of the Deep is premiering, which, in case anyone was wondering, yes, that is a Vendorian morality test. So please make sure you pass the Vendorian morality test, lest the Vendorians lay egg sacs in your throat that will then burst out, killing you when they hatch.
That sounds bad, guys.
Yeah, don't do that.
That's bad. Don't do that.
Make sure you pass the Vendorian morality test. Then on Friday, so I have to say I'm sorry. I was saying that we were going to play our next episode of Star Trek Lexington this past yesterday. We ended up not being able to do that because we had some people who couldn't make it. Look, I get it. It's, we're getting up to all three of the major December holidays, right? They're all going to overlap this year. Of course, Kwanzaa and Christmas always overlap, because when a guy decided he wanted to make his holiday start after Christmas, he decided to make it happen entirely during Christmas. But, that's neither here nor there.
We have a very late Hanukkah this year. It starts.
Yeah, it starts
like
on
the same day.
20. Doesn't
wow.
it? I thought it started a day later.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I thought it started on the 25th the next day. Christmas starts on the 24th.
How are you
Vishanti,
reckoning time?
from sunset to sunset, as is proper for both Jewish and Christian holidays. Christmas starts on December 24th at sunset. Anyway,
Vish, listen, Vish, did you say that I'm white girl drunk?
yeah, no, white girl wasted.
No, I said you're white girl wasted.
Jesus Christ!
Um,
Is there a is there a result on the poll?
Oh right, yeah, we have to do that. Yeah, the poll is heavily in favor of yes. So it's 61% yes, 39% no. So we're gonna give Kip a quick sobriety test after I finish what's coming up. So instead of doing an episode, we actually did some background stuff for the next campaign, and that was, I think, a lot of fun. We had a fair few people show up for that, so we had fun that. But hopefully, we're going to be doing the episode that you saw the preview for during the break on Friday. That'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern. No, sorry, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then next Saturday, my plan is to continue on with this book because we're only on page like 51 on the PDF out of 273.
I'm
we
here
could have
for
gone
it.
farther, but y'all like took over the.
That's
fine.
All right, so Kip, what we need you to do is stand up.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And what I need you to do is walk from one end of the room to the other. You can move that chair behind you because you want to stay in camera for the whole time.
All right.
But you want to walk from one end of the room to the other and back, right? Put one foot.
I'm probably going to have to unplug my headphones for this.
That's fine, but listen to the entire instruction first, right? No, Kip, come back.
Somehow can't hear anything.
He unplugged his headphones. He's just going
Damn
to
it.
put it on speaker. You may have to.
Okay.
mute him.
I'll mute
Look at
Kip.
this.
Maybe.
I'm so sober, I can continue to navigate my.
Mute him early. Kip, can you hear
What do
me?
you call these things? These are. Fuck it. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Maybe I am.
Kip, put
that
the
drunk.
Kip,
Okay.
put the headphones back on for a second.
I need to plug my headphones back in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you
Sorry.
plugged them out
This
entirely.
is bad. Sorry, guys.
Oh my goodness.
God damn it.
I'm gonna take a drink for how drunk Kip is.
Tesla Ranger says, Kip, I see a dinosaur wearing a monocle tie and a top hat. Cop. Yeah, you're drunk.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So Kip, listen to the
All right,
entire instructions, right?
Okay.
So-
yes, I'm listening.
Okay, what you're going to want to do is you're going to walk from one end of the room and back to the camera, but specifically, you have to put one foot directly in front of the other such that the heel of one foot touches the toe of the other, and you need to keep your arms by your side.
That's it? Is that all I have to do?
Nope, there's going
I
to
have
be one more test afterwards, but that's the first part.
Okay, but I'm starting with that. So I'm going to take my headphones off. I'm going to
Mhm.
go back to the bookcases here, right?
Mm-hmm. And then come back.
And then walk to the desk.
Yep. Putting
One
your
foot in front of the other.
Yep.
But
with
I have to
heel
put
touching
I have to
toe.
put the okay. And in a straight line.
As well, I mean, as close as the geography of your room allows, right? Because there's chairs in the
Okay.
way and whatnot. But you
All
also
right,
have to keep your
okay.
arms by your side. The more they
By
come
my
up,
side.
the more drunk you are.
All right. Okay. I'm doing it, guys.
Okay.
Here I go. Ready? Okay. Here I go.
He's not ready for this.
He's not ready for this.
Okay, so
Too bad we can't see his feet, though.
we good?
Yeah.
Gotta move it. There. I moved. Did you see I moved the chair?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Ready? One foot in front of the other, hands by the side.
Mhm.
Right, okay.
Oh.
I have to start again.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
Ah!
Well, Kip cannot safely drive. We can say that for sure.
Horizontal, folks! Did it!
Well, Kip, since you failed that one pretty badly, we're not even going to bother asking you to do anything else, like touch your nose, stand on one leg, and recite the alphabet. We're not even going to try.
Did you guys see how sweet my dog was?
Yes.
He was so
Yes.
cute. He
Yes.
came over and he
All right. Well.
and he was worried, guys.
Remember how I said that if we didn't get Kip horizontal, then we didn't succeed? Guys, we succeeded.
We succeeded.
So, thank you so much for coming. The plan is, right now, we are going to watch a couple episodes of Power Rangers, just two, on 1.25 speed, if you're interested, over on the Discord. Thank you so much for everyone, for your generosity, for your support, and especially for your generosity towards Vishanti. We are... I'm double checking to see if we have increased. We're at 16% right now. So,
Oh my god, already. I cannot believe. It's been like
Yeah.
15 minutes.
remember that time I said that I have the best audience on YouTube?
It's true.
All right, guys. I'll see you all later. Have a safe rest of your week. And hey, help each other out. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovend, Thurgevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Eleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Wallace, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.